Happy days are here again. I love this time of the year, Brian. The S95C just popped. The S90C will be made available. And the G3 is now available. But if you check online, you're going to go, wait, how come FOMO has the G3? Some other people have the G3. Why can't I buy it? And this is why I have Robert. Apparently, Value Electronics has the G3. So if you guys want to buy it today, tomorrow, the next day, who knows when Best Buy or Amazon will have it. Robert does have the LG G3, and he could also send you the Samsung S95C or whatever. But today is all about the G3. I posted my review of the S95C. Obviously, I was impressed. Definitely next generation. And many of you guys are complaining, wait a minute, why are you posting the S95C versus the A95K when the A95K clearly is not going to be as good as the Sony A95L? And my response is, it's not here, folks. I would love to compare to the A95L, but it's not going to be released until mid to late summer, right? July, who knows, August. And until then, people are looking at QD OLED as the next gen technology and maybe MLA as well. All we have is the TVs in front of us. So obviously when the A95L comes out, I will update my review, but the shootout will probably come before I get the A95L. So we will have a real shootout between the S95C, the G3, the A95L, maybe the QN95C at Value Electronics sometime in August. Robert will share the date. But for now, I am so excited about the LG G3, which Robert has available. So Robert, can you tell us a little bit about what you and Brian saw? And we're going to have it up tonight here. So what you guys see in my fourth window real quick is on the left is the G3, on the right is the A95K. And I'll post that on the bottom little ticker later. But Robert, I'm just so impressed that you have the G3 to get out there. Any bundles, any deals? G3, C3, what sizes? What can you tell us?
Thank you very much. Well, LG and the other brands as well are very kind to us, and they know that our customer base is the serious enthusiasts, and they tend to want to get the unit quickly. So we've gotten very large allocations, and we're well stocked on 55 and 65 inch G3. And next week, we'll have 77 inch and 83 inch G3 and all the C3s as well. And this is another very big upgrade year. So we get nice incremental upgrades every year. But this year, because of micro lens array, the new A9 Gen 6 processor, we have a much bigger upgrade than what we've seen in previous years. And we had so much fun in the last couple of days in my store with Brian.
Oh,
and we were both just so amazed.
When I got the box into my studio, Brian called me and says, I'm looking at it right now. My mind is blown. Forget the S95C. It's going to be all about the G3. Brian, you've been playing with it, video games, watching stuff. I don't know if you got a chance to see the S95C, but tell me about the G3 and the G2. What is the leap in performance relative to those who just want to get an LG? Should they get the G2?
Well,
they say for the G3, what's happening?
Well, me and Robert, I would say when I'm hanging out at Robert's, I stayed late last night after close. It's like a kid being in a candy store who's at a toy store at an amusement park. I mean, the G3 for me out of the box was very bright, very vibrant, and that was with a lot of the eco stuff enabled. And I was pretty impressed with it right off the bat. And we spent a lot of time in the store with the G2 last year at launch. The gaming HDR clearly had much more punch than it did last year. I was just blown away by it. The reflection handling was also excellent. Yes. We actually unboxed it in probably Robert, the sunniest window in history.
Yep.
There's a skylight in the showroom.
Yeah.
And I was just very impressed with it right from the opening menu. I love what they did with the operating system and the way they have the game bar. The picture wizard is actually something I thought was just market speak. I love it. I've already used it a couple times. So I'm just very, very impressed with it. We had it sneak peek. We put it against the A95K yesterday, which is what we're going to see today. And I'll say before we even go further into the video, if you have an A95K, it's still amazing. It's amazing how a big jump still is relatively close, Robert. What do you think? We did our little comparison in the store.
Well, the A95K is a world-class TV, but remember also that other than Sony's great processing, it's a quantum dot OLED compared to a WRGB OLED. And it's remarkable to see WRGB get up to the quality that we see in quantum dot OLED with full color saturation and color volume, with a higher peak lumens. It's really nice to see. And the processor has been nicely upgraded this year as well. So they're yeah, go ahead.
Well, and that was the interesting thing too, Robert. As me, Robert, and Wendy and I, Robert's lovely wife, also we were looking at it. The G3 did have a QD OLED feel in terms of its color.
Yes.
We did feel like it didn't look like it was lacking color. And you know, Robert, you were saying the MLA does increase color. You were explaining that in my video.
Thank you. So what they did with the micro lens array is there's literally millions of them, little lenses in there, and they're passive lenses, but they are in front of the red, green, blue, and white OLEDs. So they equally boost luminance in the colors as well. So you have better color saturation and better color volume than we've ever seen before in a WRGB. So that's a very nice enhancement this year.
And there's one thing that I also want to bring up, because this is something that's been making the rounds on the internet everywhere. If you guys are fans of Ratings Artings, they did their longevity test, which is very important for those who are interested in OLED, because the number one question is burn-in, right? A lot of people are saying, well, look, the S95B QD OLED, maybe it has a higher risk of burn-in, but then the Sony A80K suddenly has a little bit of burn-in, it appears, but none of the LGs do. So we're going to have Ratings on in April to talk about this on a live stream. Brian and I will be talking to them. But in the background, I have been talking to Ratings, and there are a few things that you all need to keep in mind why there's this big difference. And it's not just the QD OLED versus WOLED, because the Sony A80K is WOLED, right? One of the things that Ratings will look into is this. The G2, C2, it doesn't matter. LG is known to have very aggressive dimming to protect their TVs once it's been on. And so the question raised by TTF, which is a site dedicated to monitors, they said, look, if the LG, and we're just speculating, if it dims slowly over time and you're not luminance matching, which Ratings did not do, they set all the OLEDs to max everything in the settings. But if LG starts to dim over time, then ultimately it's not its max brightness setting. What you have is the S95B staying max the whole time, maybe even the Sony A90K staying max, and the LG possibly being 80%. It doesn't take a lot to reduce that light just a little bit, and Ratings never double checked every few weeks. Hey, let's see if the brightness is the same when we started. They'll start doing that moving forward, but that's something that, since they didn't check, there's a possibility, knowing LG is very cautious about burn-in, it wouldn't be a surprise if they did dim it down. That's not to say they did, but we never checked. And so that's something that Ratings will look into, because then you could self-protect your QD OLEDs or Sonys just by, well, dimming it down to 80% if you're going to leave it on running on CNN day after day. So that's something that I'll talk to Ratings about. And another thing, and I don't know if they'll do this, why don't you just open up the Sony A80K and the C2 and see, are there additional fans? Are there additional heat sink or thermal pads that the LG may have that the Sony doesn't have? So we're comparing apples to apples, WOLED to WOLED and so forth. But regardless of the reasons why, right, regardless of possible testing and inconsistencies that we're finding out now, what we do know is this. If you guys are covered by a warranty, there's a possibility that if you do have it, well, Robert at Valley Electronics, I spoke to Robert. He is one of the few that will offer extended warranty coverage. Now, warranties don't verbatim say burn-in is covered. However, if you get it through Valley Electronics, Robert will then basically represent you, and he will find a way. Just talk to him over the phone. Do not reach out to the manufacturer directly. If you buy an OLED from Robert and you say, hey, FOMO sent you, Brian sent you.
That's right.
He will try to package a warranty as part of a discount bundle deal for 4 years. Now, you do whatever you want. Just don't open the service menu, please. Because that's another conversation we're going to have before we start doing the comparison. But Robert, can you talk about this coverage? Because I know this is through you and a third party. The
That's correct.
manufacturer has their own warranty. LG G Series has their 5-year panel replacement that
That's
does
right.
not cover labor. So this covers everything. Robert, what can you tell us about your 4 years coverage for the
Very
OLED
good.
coming out this year?
Thank you. So it's from a company called Mac, M-A-C-K. Their web address is maccam.com. I would be sad almost to tell you how long I've been working with this company, but I started in the photography industry when I was in high school,
Oh,
and we sold Mac warranties. Please forgive me, that was over 50 years ago.
I
So
was going to say 5 years ago, huh?
I have worked with this company for a half a century. They know me well. I like them very much, but we counsel our clients on the proper language to use, and we represent them on the extended warranty. So maybe don't tell anybody what I'm about to say.
okay, guys, keep it a secret.
Yeah, there's only 500 of us watching. We're good.
That's good.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, while you're there, don't forget to click like so more people can watch. So this could be
Yeah.
a bigger secret. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Between us girls.
Yeah. But call me and work with me and let me represent you as well when we're filing a warranty claim, and we get burn-in covered.
Yes.
So, and it's really not an issue with these late model TVs anyway.
Right.
It's a minimal issue. It's very
right.
hard to hurt them.
Just remember, the underwriters are looking for the word burn-in. If they
That's
see
right.
that word, it's out. But if Robert
Right.
says, look, there's a panel issue, my friend. A what?
That's right.
A panel issue. So just let Robert handle it if you're getting his coverage. And this is
That's
something
right.
that I've been working with Robert on my TVs as well. So it's kind of like the trick of the trade. And for those that just joined us, the G3 is on the left, the Sony is on the right. We're going to go through a lot of settings on the G3. And this is, and I know many of you are asking, oh, what about the S95C? So that one is definitely going to be a thorough comparison, but we just don't have time today. Today, I wanted to compare the G3 to the Sony because both are known for accuracy. It's
Yes.
two different technologies. Last year, the A95K clearly beat the G2 in many ways. We want to make sure to see, well, adding MLA, does it change certain issues related to what the G2 is had issues with, which I had, which is uniformity, the pink tint, the magenta tint, and that for me single-handedly lost them the shootout last year. So this year, did they fix those things? Because oftentimes, forget peak brightness. You guys know my position on that with a recent video. But if you're seeing pink banding or gray banding, you're not going to buy the TV. It doesn't matter how bright it gets. And I think that's important for us to explore. And also, well, maybe I'm causing burning right now because it's running. Both of them are running this bright spot. Stacy Spears, I'm pointing at you. This is his new pattern. And this pattern specifically is to have changing colors in the background while you have that one static white so that the TV thinks it's real content and it's not going to dim over time, or will it, right? So I'm just running that for fun. But ultimately, if you guys are concerned about burn-in, you guys really have to look at the TVs you're getting, whether even if it's just a WOLED from LG, it's still organic and it's less stable than non-OLED. Get a mini LED, LCD TV, great selections from Sony, Samsung, right? But if you're looking at OLED, just know that, you know, if you're watching movies, not a problem. But if you're a PC monitor, gaming, watching CNN, there are definitely better TVs than an OLED just to do that. And the image quality is exactly the same. So that was something that I wanted to bring up because I keep on forgetting to tell people, because I get so many TVs in and out. I don't care about warranties, but a lot of people have asked me, you know, if I'm going to keep this for 5 years, what should I get? And every time they say 5 years, I cringe because I end up putting them to LCD TVs because I know worst case, power failure or something else, but it has nothing to do with OLED burn-in because then they'll come back at me, oh, my OLED's burned in and don't want to deal with it, right? Okay, so the one thing I think is amazing, let me put this up real quick. I wanted to show you guys.
For our sample in the store, we had, especially at 65, which I know was a challenging size last year, our panel was very clean. So I didn't see any issues with it. We updated it from jump and we didn't have any dimming. I don't know where the dimming conversation, and no raised blacks even in the window. So, I mean, that's something we spent a lot of time in a bright room with it. And I gamed on it, I don't know, 5-6 hours last night. Didn't see any dimming on it or any problems on it. And I never thought LG had a big problem with dimming anyway. I know Sony has dimmed over time, but you have to really push it.
Yeah. And thank you for the super chat, Bat. Bat Tech has lots of TVs as well. All OLEDs are at risk of burn-in, which is probably why LG locked out that GSR TPC in the service menu for their new brighter MLA TVs. So good point, Bat Tech. So we have some confirmation. I was going to put this up as well. D-Nice, Dwayne Davis, many of you know, he actually spoke with LG and he got confirmation that it's still there, but it's hidden. So in a sense, it's not going to be easy to find if you get into the service menu, and they did that on purpose. So that brings us up to the next conversation, which is this. On the one hand, people are cheering how great LG is for avoiding burn-in. And the reason why they're so great is they do what they need to do. Dimming, automatic brightness control, all of that. The stuff that you guys want to reverse, that's why they have less incidence of burn-in. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. On the one hand, people are cheering LG, and then they're mad at LG for locking them out of the service menu, right? The service menu, it's not meant for us. And many of you say, well, it's my TV, I can do whatever I want. Agreed. But then LG could hide it however they want as well, because they didn't intend for you to use it. Either way, the best thing is you still have the Samsung, you still have the Sony. And if enough of you don't buy LG, guess what? I guarantee they will make it available on the service menu. Just don't buy it. That's walk with your wallets. Do not buy the LG then, right?
Well, Informo, Robert, you can attest to this better than I can. We talk about LG being tried and true with OLEDs. They've had their experiences much like Plasma with their earlier models. They experienced burn-in with the C7, right, Robert? The 8, the 9, but the CX, I thought, Robert, tell me, that was the big turning point where they really, that was a different TV. And then I think they brought the saturation and brightness back up for the C1.
Right. Actually, it was 2018, sorry, where they started to integrate technologies to reverse the threat of burn-in. And it's gotten better every year with more technologies and improvements. This year, we have the lowest risk of burn-in. But what's also interesting is the, I know you mentioned that they're good at their aggressive, MLA, but they're not MLA, the brightness dimming, but they're not really dimming that much anymore. Brian, when we saw it in the store,
I don't see it dimming at all.
Lumens. And here's what's happened. The power supply has been increased. It's a stronger power supply. The efficiency of the WRGB OLEDs is much greater, so it's drawing less current. It's running cooler. It has the heat sink that cools it even further, and they're able to pump it up and make it brighter without worrying about the burn-in this year. So this year, there's less dimming. It's very, very minimal and gradual. There's better off-access viewing. The banding and screen uniformity and tinting is almost gone completely. It's beautiful, clean panel. And it's significantly brighter with better color saturation. I'm sorry, I know that every year I'm excited about the new TVs. I'm a hobbyist as well. So I'm always loving every little thing they do. But trust me, this is a different TV this year. It's significantly brighter, better color saturation, less threat of burn-in, runs cooler, draws less current, has so many new features, which I know you'll bring up some of them.
Yeah.
I shared some of that with you.
That picture wizard is, I can't wait.
I love that.
This is the first time that we've seen that, and I'm going to do it for the first time. I saw it at CES. I haven't even played with it yet. And one thing that someone asked is, hey, what are the picture settings I have? Because they look very similar. I don't even know what picture settings they are, right? I literally just turned it on a few minutes ago, connected everything, right? So let's explore the picture set.
Well, and I know we have John from Auto. We have.
Oh, hey, John. Yes.
We have John in the chat.
One of our favorite.
But John even says that's because you. Well, John says that's because you have the new firmware in the TV. The original firmware did dim, which Robert and I don't know because minute when we talked about whenever we unbox TVs, we get so far in the process. If we don't have the proper update or firmware, then the whole thing doesn't matter. So the minute it asked for an update, we updated it. So that's maybe why we didn't see it at all.
That's correct.
And
Thank you.
mine, I have not updated it yet, unless it's secretly updated. I didn't know. So mine is, no, the TV is not broken. This is Stacy's break-in pattern. So if you want to
Yes.
break in for hours on end, this is his break-in pattern off the disc. This is the latest disc from Spears and Munsell. It's not available for sale yet. I was helping him kind of go over some of the copy to make sure everything is correct. I still missed a few things, but the disc itself is ready to go. But before we jump into that, I wanted to explore the menu with you guys and basically the picture settings and so forth, right? So
Mhm.
I have to say, I do like the magic wand. Although KG mentioned before that it used to be a bird, that and when he said
Oh,
the bird, I go, "Oh, that's so offensive, the little fingers floating around," but it turned out it was literally a bird, right? So there you
what's so
go.
good about their menu, FOMO, is this even gaming, it's all about trying to do as much as you can on that main little that little
Right.
shortcut menu. So
Mhm.
you don't have to go too far deep. There is an eco setting that you got to disable. I
I
think you
did.
did it already.
And I
Mhm.
think it was disabled out of the box for me. Okay, so let's go over the picture modes real quick for those you don't know, right? Personalized picture, we'll skip that for now. Vivid, we all know what that is. And the Sony is in its most accurate mode in this kind of splash screen, so you guys can see
Mhm.
how much brighter Vivid is. Standard, Cinema Home. So Cinema Home is the most accurate mode in a brighter room. And Cinema is in a light controlled darker room, right? So if you're in a darker room, choose Cinema. If it's not bright enough for you or you have more light than you expected, then you go to Cinema Home. So normally LG uses the word home to show that it's a little bit brighter, like
That's
Dolby
right.
Vision Home, right? So they like to use the word home, meaning bright in a bright room. Then you have the game optimizer setting and back to personalized. So we're going to go to Cinema because it is a light controlled room and it best matches the Sony in its calibrated mode. Now, advanced settings, and I do have it in the enhanced HDMI and so forth, right?
Yep.
So,
What's
By the
interesting,
way,
FOMO, is good.
I
Good,
think
Robert.
I think Brian and I like the filmmaker mode most.
oh, filmmaker
The,
mode. Okay, all right, let's get
what's
to film.
interesting is we went through the settings, Robert. We saw that it ships in standard,
Yes.
and it wasn't, other than Vivid, it wasn't really the brighter mode. It seemed like Cinema,
Right.
Home was brighter, and I was shocked at how bright Filmmaker mode was.
Yes. Yes.
So it's that's when I knew you're dealing with something different. I think the only mode that was dark was the ISF dark mode and
Yes.
SDR.
That's right.
So I was shocked that they kept all those bright without lifting the blacks.
I put in HDR content so I can get, oh, there it goes, filmmaker mode down there. Okay, so I will select filmmaker mode as well to make sure it's consistent. And I'll be running sample content while we're talking about this in the meantime. So you guys have something to watch while we go through the menus because, oh, that's the SDR menu. I'm telling you. It's like, what? Where'd all my, unfortunately, I have the pre-production discs and they all look the same to me. Wait,
Oh,
which
why this isn't that? We got to do the whole thing over again.
where's it at? Where's my skin tones?
We did that yesterday, Robert. Like the player, we're like, okay, the player is an SDR, and then we did the whole exact thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was
Uh,
shocked that Filmmaker was so bright.
I know.
And then Standard was actually had depth to it, and it was obviously more saturated, but it wasn't that crazy mode that it has been in the past.
Hmm.
Okay, so as you can see, both TVs have Dolby Vision recognized and HDR10. So we're going to compare Dolby Vision. In my last review, if you noticed, the Sony's Dolby Vision was a little bit darker in its
Hmm.
most accurate mode, and it's supposed to be accurate. The question is, does LG do it differently? It shouldn't, by the way. I mean, Dolby Vision should be Dolby Vision, but you just never know. So I'll just put on some demo. I'll put some skin tones real quick. There we go. Okay, so this will allow me to play with. Okay, so we are in cinema mode. And then let's go to the picture. I really want to play with the wizard for a second so you guys can see. So wait, I think I remember how to get to the wizard.
It wasn't advanced picture, it was just picture.
Picture,
It
right?
was
And the advanced settings.
no, it was under just the picture. Go up again.
I go back.
Yeah, go back.
Oh, there it is. Personalized picture wizard.
It's
So when you're done with that, that falls under that preset for personalized. So that
Okay.
user mode that you see. And this thing actually works. We saw this. David Park introduced this to us all, right, Robert and
yes.
Momo. And that's like the part I stopped listening to. I'm like, oh, this is just market speak. And then once I rocked it, I was like, okay, this is mine.
Okay. So
So
before
legit.
we do this, let's compare some images to see if there's any differences. We'll go through a couple of different images on the Spears and Munsell, right? Some Dolby Vision, some HDR10, whatever. And then you guys could say, oh, they look identical. They don't. We go through the wizard and see if it changes what we see, because I think that's a great base to start. So before I go through the wizard, let's give ourselves a kind of like a foundation real quick. So
What's cool about it too, though, FOMO, is that unlike the AI Picture Pro, where it's going to learn it over time, it's like, no, I'll take your preferences now. And it shows you different pictures. If you want a saturated mode, you know, it just kind of shows you which way you're leaning, right, Robert? It's kind of saying,
Yes.
okay, I think you're a vivid guy.
oh my. Okay, so I have to say, the LG looks more like the Sony than the S95C did out of the box. So I'll tell you guys. I'll show you guys. We'll do the actual here. Okay, so if you guys saw my review, the S95C was a touch warmer in its most accurate mode. Here, they're actually very similar. So we'll go through the different faces real quick, but I have to say the LG out of the box is more similar to the Sony,
Yes.
which is fully calibrated. The LG is not. Oh, wow, the LG feels like it's a touch, like there's more brightness a little bit.
It is
Right?
bright.
Yeah, it's pretty clear on the camera that it's a lot brighter.
Yeah. I'm going to
That
turn up
could
my
be it because
phone.
I'm watching your video through my camera, through your camera.
Now we are comparing the very, very, very best 2022 television to the new 2023.
Okay. This
Well,
is pretty good. I have to say, this is the
Yeah.
hardest one to get right,
I know.
because if it's not properly calibrated on her face, you can totally see the green. And these two are so close. So the only difference is, I have to say, LG luminance, the colors, it's not different. It's just brighter. MLA, it's doing its job right here.
Yes, it is.
But
This
it's
is what I
interesting that the
expected
MLA
out
looks like
of-
a quantum dot
Yeah.
color-wise.
Yes, yes. Oh man, this is. Let me double check that the Sony is not in. Okay, so, well, oh, Dolby Vision Dark. Okay, so this Dolby Vision Dark, bright does lighten it up a bit, but this
Yeah.
is the most accurate mode. So I'll leave it that way. I'm about to say this looks more like the LG.
What's the LG in? Is the LG in Dolby Vision as well? This is Dolby Vision.
No, the LG is in it's in cinema. It's just in regular cinema, not even cinema home.
So those of you, the guys that like
Cinema
watching
home
us
is
do
even
these,
brighter, right? This
Yes,
is
for
regular
watching our
cinema.
comparisons, this is what we do. We go through and realize, okay, one's got dynamic tone mapping on, one doesn't. One's in Dolby Vision, which is always darker, especially on a Sony. Then the other one is brighter. So a lot of times when you think you can totally see it, it's really not.
So this tells me that the Sony Dolby Vision Dark is darker than the LG Cinema Dolby Vision in its most accurate mode. The LG cannot get darker than this in terms of a picture mode.
Right.
Now, you can see that the white points are slightly different because the LG is not calibrated, but then, wait, let me put the Sony back to its dark. There you go. It's a little bit closer, but I'll leave, I don't know. It's so unfair to the Sony. I'm going to have to put it on bright because you guys will say, oh, the Sony sucks. So the Sony is on Dolby Vision Bright. The LG is on Cinema, which is Dolby Vision Accurate. Right, Classy? Classy is like the Dolby Vision Display Professional here. Now let's go to the next one. This one I think passed with flying colors. I look at it and go, oh. Okay, slight. I mean, it's so slight. There may be a touch of green, but it's so slight. I'd say it's very close to accurate. More so than the S95C.
Hey, FOMO, would you try the filmmaker mode just for a moment?
Sure.
These come out of the box very, very well set at D65. So I'm seeing the yellow, the green, blue push, but I don't think
there is Filmmaker because it's on Dolby Vision.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Dolby Vision Cinema is not, I mean, Dolby Vision Filmmaker is not out yet.
Okay.
Even though we know it will be at some point. So this is Dolby Vision. And you know,
Oh,
come on,
gotcha.
Dolby Vision skin tones. We're not talking peak brightness. If we know
Okay.
anything, we know that Dolby Vision is graded for color gradients, right? So you guys are seeing out of the box on the left is the LG uncalibrated. The Sony is calibrated, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the Sony back on dark, but I will lower the brightness on the LG just
Okay.
so at least Sony gets its most accurate mode in, because the LG is amazingly bright. This MLA is killing me. In a good way, guys, in a good way.
Yes, yes.
It's just slightly brighter.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. There you go. It's a little bit closer now. Took it down a little bit, not too much.
Yeah.
So the LG, if it was at max brightness in its most accurate mode, it's a bit brighter than the Sony, and it kind of throws things off a little bit. Okay, dynamic tone mapping. Someone's asking. We will do that in a second. I think I want to play with the wizard first. So it passes. For me, this is really hard. The Samsung was definitely warmer. She looked like she had more of a slight color, whereas in here, let me turn up the exposure just a touch. Is that a bit better for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it did look a little dark earlier.
They look beautiful. This is.
Guys, if you have a second, hit like. We got 560 something watching.
All right. Oh, another difficult one. Pale faces, I tell you. When there's too much green, they're looking healthy, and it looks really good out of the box. I don't know if Dwayne will have any business other than the white point. It's clear that the white point is a little different than the Sony, so it'll be interesting. And wait, is there a pink tint? I'll do that test on the gray area shortly, guys.
Okay.
We'll be surprised, but I don't see anything obvious right now. So this is kind of easy. She looks. So the skin tones are near identical, but the white in the back is slightly different.
Yes.
All right, so let's go to some of the demo material. Again, thank you, Stacey.
Can we get out of Dolby? Can we get out of Dolby Vision?
You want to get out of Dolby Vision?
Let's get out of Dolby Vision, man. That way we can actually put the Sony in some comparable.
Okay.
The Sony Dolby Vision is darker anyway, don't you think? And you can stay in it, but I just think that you're going to get a lot of people.
Yeah. So this will be 1000 nit content. 1000 nit content, both TVs will do perfectly. So this one is non-challenging for either one. So we're going to run into 1000 nit content, and we'll just kind of do a play-by-play for what we're seeing. So again, the Sony on the right, A95K, and the LG on the left. So the splash page, the G3 is just super bright. Okay, I'm going to pause right here. This is very bright, and I don't know if it's even accurately bright at this point. Let me make sure to see if it's a Dolby Vision. Nope, this is HDR10, and let me double check that my settings on the LG is still, the brightness is lowered just a little bit. The Sony, this is why it switched over. Let's make sure.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on it. The A95K likes to jump around.
There you go, filmmaker mode. Okay, that's why. See, but it's still slightly brighter. It's in filmmaker mode, and it's still slightly brighter. Let me double check the brightness setting. I'm going to take it down a touch. I know many of you are saying, "Oh yeah, they take it down to 90." So the headroom on the LG, yeah, at 90 it matches the Sony. So for those of you wondering, if you go down to 90. That matches the Sony, and if you can always go up to 100, but I wanted to make sure, and I cannot get the Sony any brighter and maintain accuracy. So actually, it might stand to go down a little bit lower.
So FOMO Bad Text got a super chat. The G3 apparently suffers from poor color and dark material, and the G2 looks better according to some reviews. I didn't see that, but he just sent you a super chat.
Yeah. Let me know when there's a super chat, because I'm like so excited.
I will.
Okay.
Yep, I got you.
Poor color and dark material. And Bat, you saw my review, right? dark material is what we'll be looking at in my review, in the shootout, right, Robert? We don't have a lot of
Yes.
dark material where there's color. So I'm definitely going to test it on the ones that we already had. I'll find more and we'll make sure to introduce that where you have rich color tones in slightly dark, not pitch black. So there's some color, and the most accurate TV is going to show what it's supposed to be shown because we're going to have the reference monitor there, right, Robert? The
Yes, we
reference monitor is exactly what they use in Hollywood to see those colors. If it's on the reference monitor, it better be on the TVs, and maybe the TVs are showing colors that shouldn't be there, right? It works both ways. So,
that's
all right,
correct.
so let's continue.
And dynamic tone mapping's off with Filmmaker, isn't it?
Yes.
Or is
well,
it enabled
wait,
now?
can
I
you
think-
even turn it
make
on
sure-
in Filmmaker? Okay.
I think it's
Yeah,
it's grayed out.
Well, I did not add any dynamic tone mapping, so, but let's just see.
It's
You never
sneaky.
know. It might be default on, right? So is
Yep.
it under brightness?
And you got a couple super chats from Kimar and John.
Oh,
Doe.
dynamic
Give
tone
us a
mapping
second.
is on. So it comes, it starts off as on.
It didn't dim at all though, did it? That's all. That's dynamic contrast.
Oh yeah, wait a minute, let me double check here. One second. Okay, so dynamic tone mapping actually was default on.
Mhm.
It looks like when you turned it off,
that didn't change the brightness at all, though.
it didn't.
So
So,
to be
it's
fair,
probably
it was on, now it's off, but it didn't do anything. It didn't change the brightness at all. So
it's
I just
sneaky.
turned off dynamic tone mapping, and
What about in the
it's at-
Sony?
the Sony, it's always
Is it,
off, but I'll double check.
was it
The
gradients or brightness
Sony
preferred? That one's
should be
sneaky too.
gradation preferred, but yeah, you never know. Maybe I left it on brightness preferred last time I did it. Light sensors
They're like
are
Terminators.
off,
They turn their stuff on.
gradation preferred.
We saw that
yes.
yesterday, Robert. Right? I know I turned it off.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, you can see the white points are slightly different because, again, remember, the Sony's calibrated, the LG is not. So if you want it to look exactly identical, this is why you need to have it calibrated. Oh, speaking of calibrations and head-to-head. So while you're all here, next week, I am flying to Valley Electronics to meet up with Robert and Brian. We're going to have a head-to-head
Yes.
S95C versus the G3. And if
Yes.
we have the G2 there, we're going to have it there as well. You guys know what the A95K is capable of. I think you're more interested in seeing S95C, G3, G2, because those of you who are shopping G3, you're debating between that or saving some money and getting a G2. We'll make sure to have some definitive answers because maybe your content, it doesn't make a difference. Brian and I, our job on Saturday, it's going to be a 2-day event. On Saturday, Brian and I will be like the kids in a toy store. No adult supervision, right, Brian? We're going to bring our games, our toys. A lot of you asked for SDR gaming. We're going to have SDR games. We're going to have Switch, whatever. And
We're gonna have a
it'll be
4090
live
there.
streaming for like 12 hours just to see if we can break these TVs without breaking the TVs. So you guys could kind of dive into it. Nothing is calibrated. And then on Sunday, the adults will be walking in. We're going to have John Riformato. John, thank you for coming on Sunday. He's going to calibrate it and he's going to show, okay, let's calibrate everything and see how close the LG gets to the S95C, to the G2 and all that. And we're going to push it. This is kind of a mini shootout without being a mini shootout because honestly, since Sony's taking so long to come out, Sony, you'd be here too if you released your TV. But when the Sony does come out, then we will have a full shootout because got to wait for the king, right? But in the meantime, this will hold you over. For those of you who are not Sony fans per se, you just want a great TV and LG is on your list. Guys, next weekend, block it off. It'll be 48 hours. And Brian and I'm there. What am I doing, right? We could be sleeping at Valley Electronics with a sleeping bag.
It's a great place. It's a great place to sleep, right, Robert?
Where's the bathroom?
It is.
So it'll be a G3, G2, S95C love fest because I think so far I'm loving all that I'm seeing from all the TVs. And so, yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions about, I'm debating between this or that, let us know now so I can get things ready for Robert. And I have to thank you, Robert, for being so generous and accommodating. I said, Robert, if I flew in there, would you be able to just kind of leave the doors unlocked? And then Brian and I would just like never go home. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Just a night watchman, that's all. Yeah, a couple super chats. You got one from Kimar and then one from John Doe. Kimar is up top in the yellow.
Yeah, here we go. Hey, thank you, Kimar, for the super chat. Thanks for this comparison. Just showing love and respect for your work. And thanks, Rob and Brian, for also assisting. they didn't just assist. Robert sent me the G3 in its first allocation. Robert, I got to have this now. And he's like, I was like, I couldn't find it on Best Buy. I can't find it on Amazon. He goes, no, I got it. I got you covered. And that's just how mom and pop shops are, right? When you're the LG, what are you, Pinnacle Diamond dealer from?
That's right.
Right, the Holy Land.
That's right.
LG has so much respect for Robert. You guys don't understand. So when Robert said, look, I know they're all getting it this time. Can you pull a few strings for my customers? They came through. I'm one of Robert's customers.
Yes.
I've been buying TVs from Robert since, when I started the channel, and I still am working with Robert on so many things. So if you guys have any questions, definitely reach out to Robert. John Doe asks, will the C3 have MLA? No, it will not. Well, next year, who knows? But and even the G3, not all the sizes have MLA. Only the smaller sizes up to 77-inch have MLA on the G3. The 83 and the 97 do not. And even the 8K, right, Robert? Just a smaller 8K, the 77-inch, or none of them. None of the 8Ks have it. Okay.
Right.
I thought the 77 Z3 is not going to have it.
LG doesn't want to talk about the Z3 at this time.
Okay.
All right. So
enough said.
Classy, you're killing the Sony.
I know.
So this is what Classy is saying, and Classy, I do not disagree with you. I just try and give Sony a chance here. So Classy is saying, don't change the brightness. So if you guys just jumped in, I had to bring down the brightness on the LG because the Sony was left so far behind in its most accurate mode. So this is Filmmaker mode versus Sony's calibrated mode. Sony is on max brightness, gradation preferred. LG is in Filmmaker mode, no enhancements on, there's no tone mapping. If you guys will notice, I'll show you what my settings are real quick. I had to take down the brightness a notch. 86, let's bring it back up to 100 because Classy is saying, hey, you know what, Sony, deal with it. If you're not going to be, if you cannot do it with QD OLED, you just cannot do it. So that's this.
Well, QD OLED for 2023 will be brighter again, as you saw.
Well, okay, and let's just get some context, everyone. Last year, QD OLED was bright. It's just this year, both Samsung S95C and the G3 raised the game, and in one generation, literally, they released it in what, August last year.
Right.
8 months later, they're behind again. And this is the content, everyone. This is 1000 nit content. So the Sony is tone mapping that down, whereas the LG doesn't have to tone map as much. It's letting the brightness run wild. So thanks, Classy. So, well, if you guys notice that the LG is a little bit brighter, it's because it is. And that means I can take the exposure down a notch because the exposure was raised at the behest of Sony. If I make the exposure accurate, the Sony just looks that much darker. Yeah. That is exposed to the LG. This is what I see of the LG, and relatively speaking, this is slightly dimmed Sony. How many nits is that? I'd say that's at least a 100 to 150 nit difference, at least, if not more. And that we're talking an APL, it's a 10-15% difference right here. So for those of you who saw my Dolby Vision comparison, that this is just consistent with that. I cannot wait to see, well, I mean, it may be redundant if I put it through Dolby Vision, but yeah. So thanks for that. And thank you everyone for coming. If I missed your questions, oh, more super chats. Oh, hello. Hello there. Chances LG and Samsung switch to Android TV? No. LG and Samsung, they've invested so much money in their WebOS. LG's WebOS is amazing, by the way. We're going to go over the wizard right after this. The LG should not. Android TV is because if you don't have enough money to invest in your software, and honestly, it's very expensive, you go with Google TV, you go with Roku, which is what Hisense, TCL, and Sony did. It's just very expensive because security is very expensive. So Samsung and LG has a lot of money invested into their OS systems. Not anytime soon. I don't think so. And EHJ, thank you. Great stream, y'all. Thank you for all you do. It means a lot. Will LG Multiview do the same as Sony A95L? Well,
I enabled it. I enabled it by accident yesterday while I was gaming.
Uh-huh. How
And then
was
I couldn't disable it because I'm using the service remote, so I couldn't get out of it. But it is designed, I know specifically in gaming, but I think it is a picture-in-picture mode, right, Robert? But it can bring
Yes.
in both. It gives you an opportunity to pick a rather different, streaming services and things of that nature. I think it's somewhat similar to what Sony's doing.
Yes.
And
I don't know if it's exact.
something,
Robert knows better than me.
hey, Brian, I was going to ask you, a lot of people asked me, hey, the Multiview, whether it's Sony or LG or Samsung, can they put 4 different sources or 3 different sources into HDMI and split it on Multiview? Is that what it's for? Or is it internal apps only?
No, I think it's a couple different sources because one, at least I know one can be a source and the other one can be an app.
Yes.
I'm fairly certain it's at least one.
Okay, so at most one, maybe
I'm just
one
guessing.
additional source? Okay, we'll play with that. We'll find out.
I mean, I would think it would be hard to do HDMI 1 and 2 next to each other. I'm not sure that would be, how
Yeah.
possible that would be, but I know it's definitely one.
And Jump Rope is saying Sony BVM at D65 is the reference, and that's what we're going to use.
Yes.
Right, Robert? Is it going to be
Yes.
the 310? Okay.
Yes, and
That's
jump rope lift is correct. He is correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And let me get to all your super chats real quick.
There's
Thank
some
you
of the
again,
new
guys.
animals.
I know.
Kmart again. What's up, Kmart?
The S95C and G3 are impressive out of the box so far. They are coming for Sony, which is good. Now, Sony, they got prep time, and maybe that's why. So let's give Sony the benefit of the doubt. It's possible they're waiting until July because now they have 3 to 4 months to look at what everyone's laid out on. Lay their cards out. They're going, okay, LG's bright, Samsung's bright. Guys, we got to raise our game. Apparently, no one cares about burn-in. Let's just do what we have to do. Who knows, right?
Well, and
But
FOMO, to Kemar's point, Kemar, it's interesting is, we talked at CES and Robert knows all these guys. So does FOMO. They're like fight camps. So the fact that the Samsung S95C dropped early again, I personally think they dropped it too soon. LG was first out of the gate last year in early March. They waited. And they're all doing things on purpose. Sony was purposely not at CES last year. It's not because they were afraid. They want to hang back. They don't want to share what they have. So it is interesting, Kemar, to your point. They do these things on purpose. It's not just short products, but they don't want to be first. They want to hang back because they can alter their processing and change things on the fly.
And so SD has a question, and maybe Brian, you can answer this because I never thought about this. Can you enable peak brightness in HDR game mode? I think you could always have peak brightness in any mode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I mean, you can manually put it up,
Yeah.
if you want it. It's just I don't know if you would want to do that in SDR. It's plenty bright in SDR. My Street Fighter thing showed it. I mean, it looks very bright, and even these SDR modes are pretty bright.
And you guys are merciless. So everyone is kind of like saying, look, everyone is here to see the brightness of the G3 and MLE. No one cares about the Sony accuracy. We're boys, right? Boys and their bright lights and their fast cars. So this is what you guys are
But the funny thing is, when I make it bright, the first thing I hear is, well, it's washed out. So it's like they're asking for it, but at the same time.
Please stop nerfing the LG and turn the OLED light back up to 100. Yes, it's been done, Sonola. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you.
Sonola's yelling, yo!
So just so you guys know, and I agree with Classy, I normally do all my reviews with max brightness.
Yes.
And in this case, I want you guys to see that if you wanted to match the Sony, you bring it down to around 86. But at 100, this is accurate. But this is only 1,000 nits. We should challenge the Sony and take it to 2,000 and see what happens. Because clearly the LG was not challenged at 1,000.
And that's what we ran in story yesterday, Robert, was the 2,000 nits.
2,000 nit, right.
And look at that. It just shamed the Sony even more. So here we are at 2,000 nits. The LG is able to raise its game a bit more, and the Sony is just going to tone map down to what it was before. It cannot raise its game any further, right? Because it's preserving the color. And right here, this is a great one where the LG, the peak brightness has more color. So I'm seeing actually more color in the LG. So where you guys see the bright orange, the LG is both brighter and has more color perceptually. My camera cannot capture that luminance, this MLA added yellow luminance that the Sony does not have. So now, could it be an accuracy issue? We'll see, but I'll tell you right now, I am very impressed by MLA. LG, good job. Let me catch up on the super chats. Oh, Quickness, you're killing us with your generosity.
Excellent question, by the way.
Let's go into it. Been waiting for this for a while. So have I. I have been through two 900 BS 75s, both the same terrible backlight vertical banding problems for strictly gaming. Should I get? Okay. S95C or G3? I know where you're going to answer, Brian. We're going to have the S95C gaming. And honestly, Quickness, I have not started gaming on the S95C. I was waiting for Brian so that we could be at Electronics, and we will be gaming in our live stream. We'll break out all the different games. This is a good time for you to go ahead and jump into chat and tell us what kind of games you want seen. We have the PS5, we have the Xbox, we're throwing some Switch in there, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Exactly, and a PC. Oh, he's got the 4090. Come on, man, the 4090.
Yep. We're not going to play around.
S95C or G3. So normally I say just stick with LG, generally speaking, and it's no different now. LG, G3, you're going to have all the features working more often than not. And the firmwares, they are very particular about not breaking game mode if they can. And when it is broken, they are very prompt in fixing it. Samsung, I know it's a mixed bag. So if you're a gamer, get the G3 and call it a day, because I'm so impressed with this brightness right now. And I know Brian's been gaming on it. Brian, you want to finish your thought on gaming on the G3?
Well, for quickness too, I know you're apprehensive because you game quite a bit. I would just say the best way to avoid it is to vary your content. If you're rocking the same exact game every single day, all you have to do is, as you shut down, run some demo material, break up those pixels, and you're going to be fine. I wouldn't leave things up there static. You know, we've seen the S95. I don't know what the burn-in potential is there. I would just say between those two, Samsung trailblazes gaming as well. I mean, they actually started the game optimizer thing years ago, but they're just not as consistent. The updates make me nervous. I do like their motion processing that they do, the one that KG loves. The G3 is just more simplified and more tried and true.
And of course, rumor has it, Classy, correct me if I'm wrong, he mentioned that they just had a firmware update. Guess what it broke? HGIG. So I haven't confirmed it myself, but if you go to the user forum, check it out. The most recent Samsung S95C update, people aren't happy with how HGIG looks now. So this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that happens.
Here, real quick. Now, perceptually, they look very similar to this image, but if I look in, my camera is better than my eyes. The camera is saying that the Sony is slightly less bright. So this is probably less than 50 nits difference because I don't notice it through my own eyes, but the camera is showing that the Sony is slightly different in its peak spectral highlights. So pretty impressive.
To the right of the mountains, you can see that there's a little bit more, but I mean, then you can arguably say there's a bit more depth and a little more warmness with the Sony.
Yes.
Well, that's the problem, right? Because that warmness, because the on YouTube, it doesn't capture that luminance brightness and it looks washed out. If I take down, watch this. If I take down the exposure so that you can catch the true warmth of the LG, and what you see is they're very similar. Right. Okay, this image is great because it's not too bright. Both TVs are able to do it identically in this image, right? But if I take the exposure down a little bit more, you'll see that the LG has all that luminance or all that warmth and gradation as well. It's just it was overexposed because the Sony was so much dimmer. Hey, John, our favorite calibrator. I felt the new LG processing on the G3 makes it look a lot more like the Panasonic. So this is something, if you guys don't know, I asked John and Robert all, what's your favorite OLED for the last few years? And John's like, Panasonic. Too bad they don't sell it here. It's the Panasonic. I take that in a heartbeat. And then for the first time, John's like, you know, I think I'll take the G3 now. And that was saying something because the Panasonic is a 2-year-old OLED that he, even last year, was like, I still take the Panasonic, right? So, wow, John, that's saying a lot, my friend. Come on, thank you for the super chat. Well, that's true. I recall Sony jumping the gun with the A90J, dropped early March 2021. I wonder why they changed to summer release. I'd like to say maybe it's a supply chain issue because it's still a thing, but we really don't know. I don't think Sony will ever, or any company for that matter, would ever tell you really why, right?
Well, so, Robert, that's actually not accurate because the A90J didn't drop early. They canceled the TV before the A90J. Remember, Robert? They canceled the A90. The A9, it was after the A8H. They didn't release the TV that year. They ended up skipping a year. So that's probably why it came out earlier than the others.
Hey,
If you
Optimum
remember the Master Shares.
Calibrations.
Yes.
Maybe he loves calibrating TVs as well. Thank you for the super chat. I'm sure you have a question somewhere. As soon as I find that question, please keep on asking. I'll remember your name. We'll catch it. If you guys see Optimum Calibrations asking something, please let me know. Hey, Kim. Oh, this is a great question for Robert. Is the Z9K a good TV? Good for TV shows? And why no new 8K? Brian and Robert, you guys have spent a lot of time with the Z9K. Is it good for TV shows? I know it'll be bright for TV shows.
You know, very interestingly, when Sony carried over the A90J Master Series for another year, I was in a Sony meeting with the engineers and product development people. This relates to this question. And I said, hey, how come there's no successor? They said, hey, you're a smart engineer yourself. Tell us what you'd like us to do to make it better. I had nothing to say. The same question, I brought up the same question to the LG engineers on the Z9. And they
Sony, the Sony engineers?
It's like the same people. They said the same thing. What would you like me to do better? And I had nothing to say. So, you know.
And I think for TV shows, so Kim, just to for you to understand, TV shows are the easiest of the easier, right? We're talking SDR, 1080p, if that, maybe 720, depending on over the air what you're getting, right?
That's right.
So the Z9K, it's like getting a Ferrari and asking, is it good enough for driving around my suburb? Oh yeah, it's definitely good enough. The question is, you know, what are you challenged by? And if you are looking at 8K, Kim, get the largest TV you can.
Yes.
So you can take full advantage of all those pixels, right? Otherwise, on a 75-inch Z9K, you might as well just get an 85-inch X95K. And I think you'd have a better time.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a great point, all that tech. I just want to, because this is something that I'm looking into a lot. I read that What's Hi-Fi, that's a magazine from England, if I'm not mistaken. What's Hi-Fi observed undersaturated colors in lower nit content than the LG G2. So if you guys saw my video recently today, the Sony A95K had undersaturated colors in low nit content, right? The Illusionist, Alita, that scene, as well as the beginning race scene of Ford versus Ferrari, I saw undersaturated colors. So there's all that tech saying that maybe there is undersaturation here. We will definitely look at that. John, I know he's reading. John, check it when we are there on Sunday. So we will know for sure if it is undersaturated. We'll have all three TVs there, the G2, the G3, and the S95C. And let's see what's what. Because we know the A95K undersaturates, so we don't have to revisit that again. And is that something any of you have noticed firsthand so far? Any banding or panel uniformity? So whether we notice it, I will notice it as I will be reviewing this, but we'll see it next week. So check our live stream for that. Now, any banding or panel uniformity, we're going to confirm it tonight. So after we get through this, I'm going to put it on some gray screens at different percentages, and you guys will see it for yourself. Now, last year, I had major banding issues on my G2. I was not happy. But then at the shootout, same problem, and it was a close score. But at the end, it lost because of those banding. It made gray, green, and that was it. I mean, come on. You can't win with that. So
one more item to note is that if we're going to be looking at low lumens gray, full field gray, is that your panel doesn't have any real hours on it, and there's no panel refresh yet. It's going to change to dramatically better after 100 hours.
And that's panel refresh. That's something I will definitely comment on, Robert. Okay. So
thank you.
If there is some, immediately I'm going to break it in for 100 hours, right? Good. All I need to do, run the pixel refresh a couple of times, and then you guys will see a before and after with the same exposure. And then, you know, we'll see. And so I have a week before I get to your place. So if the LG reps are there, we can talk to them about my findings, because that would be great. That's something a lot of people don't realize.
We're not going to have any reps. We're going to have engineers.
Oh, that's even better. They're
going to quietly sit there with a pen.
LG engineers. Oh, I gotta love it. And again, guys, the reason, and by the way, it was originally just Brian and I coming over, having fun breaking TVs. And where was? Oh, by the way, LG is going to send their engineers over to keep an eye on you guys. What? The adults are coming. So we will break everything on Saturday, and they're going to fix everything on Sunday. Right, Robert?
Well, and the cool thing about Robert's showroom, Robert, right? What's on the wall? Z9K on the wall, 900B on the wall, A90J on the wall, and the G2 at what, 97 inches. So we can move the TVs all over the place.
That's right.
And CJ, I will try to do that. on the stream, and hopefully we'll do at the end so that I don't get shut down by the censors or
Okay.
the copyright people. So at the very end, we'll do that because we'll be doing, because I have it all on Kaleidoscape on a script. I will push play and it'll run all 3 scenes: Alita, Illusionist, and Ford versus Ferrari. Those 3 scenes
Beautiful.
low knit, so you guys can see it.
Beautiful.
I'll pause and then boom. Then we don't have to worry about switching discs and hopefully not get in trouble, right?
Very nice.
You're correct, Sonola. It's really
Yes.
hard to keep up with the, like right here, it's underexposed. I'm gonna raise exposure. I'm constantly just fiddling around with this. There we go. All right.
That's good. That's much
Okay.
better.
This is what we all see. On the brighter scenes, I have to take it down so you guys could see the brighter areas, but this is what I see now. So they're very similar, more often than not, right? Robert, a lot of people want to know, they want the S95C. Do you know when you'll be getting the 55-inch or the 65-inch? 77-inch might be just too big.
Yes. 3rd to 4th week of April. So about a month from now.
Are you able to share timelines for the S90C? Because a lot of people are like, I might just go for the 77-inch S90C and save a little money.
I can stay online, but I'm going to go look at a file and I'll tell you what that is.
Okay, let us know later.
Yeah,
sure.
S90C. Okay.
Quickness, thank you again for the super chat. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Been following all you guys so closely for a while now. Thanks. And been affirming that LG is the more fail-safe, tried and true. Yes, they're very cautious about that. Just worried because I'm used to Samsung ColorPop and also used to 900B brightness. So with this MLA, you guys, you have seen Quickness. I haven't activated tone mapping, and we haven't done the picture wizard yet either. We're going to do that, and then you'll see if there's any differences, so that I wanted to give you a comparison with the Sony, already how it is, and with the wizard, and then turning on tone mapping, does that raise the brightness even further, or does it just change the focus of the brightness? Because the TV has its own limitations of power. I talked about in another video, the brightness load balancing. It may just end up shifting brightness to other areas of the screen, not necessarily raising overall brightness, but rather, rather than give you peak brightness here, we'll lower that and raise this brightness instead. So it's just all about compromises.
Well, and for Quickness, I think you'll appreciate the contrast ratio. I think with the 900B, you're seeing an entire bright screen. You're not seeing real, because the 900B and the 90B tend to flatten out the image to stop the blooming. So at times it can look very matte. It's brighter, but it can look non-dimensional, and you'll appreciate the contrast, the micro contrast of the OLED. I think you'll feel it's actually almost brighter because you'll see what's bright is supposed to be bright.
Right.
Absolutely. And great question, John. Did I see any tinting on full white? We're going to run full white and gray patterns, but as Robert said, because it literally, I unboxed it this morning, I set it up, I turned it on, and this is the first hour of the TV being on. And as we know, OLED takes 100 hours to settle down. So if I do see anything, I will make sure to go through the break-in process, refresh the pixels, and then check it again. So if we see something now, it doesn't mean that it's going to stick, right? So that's just something for all you to keep in mind. Hey, Tech with KG, stop the FOMO, Brian's Tech Therapy. Can you discuss and try out the expression enhancer? Brian, what is that? Did you check it out?
I mean, I did check it out. I didn't see exactly what it did. I'm imagining it's an AI thing, or where it'll learn over time, but I couldn't really see. But it is a cool feature they added, and I think that's just. I mean, they're not playing around with their processing. I think they're just flexing by putting little things like that in there, because no one else has anything like that.
I can explain that feature if you'd like. It's something
go ahead,
please.
Yeah.
What it does is it looks at each frame and it says, oh, I see a face in this frame. Let's focus on that and concentrate on that. And let's make the highlights right. Let's make it as sharp as it could be. Not with edge enhancement. So I can read off a private technical thing I got about it. But what it does, it looks at the most important a face, and it gives you more depth and detail. So it looks at the most interesting and most important objects, and it focuses its processing capabilities to do its best tone mapping and its best detail on important parts of the image area. That's called the expression enhancer. It's a new feature for this year. And by the way, I'm very anxious to talk about the new tone mapping that they did this year. This is
Oh,
a big upgrade.
so when we get to that setting, definitely we're going to talk about that. And Carlos, thank you for the super chat. Chile, Santiago, thank you very much for everything you do. I have learned a lot with you. Greetings from Chile, Latin America. Yeah, one day I'll visit the capital. One day. Lee, thank you for the super chat. Really thinking just about over 83-inch screen. So this is Brian, the big boy we're talking about here.
Yes.
Do you think the G3 83-inch will have a big visual difference compared to last year? Should I just wait for next year or get last year's 83-inch model? I'm coming from a really old 60-inch, 10-year-old Sony Bravia. So you definitely are going to see an improvement. Now, because the G3 83-inch doesn't have MLA, there's not going to be a big visual difference between that and the G2. If you're going 83-inch, you might as well just get the G2, I think. But Robert, I know you have a lot more detail than I do. Between the G3 83-inch and the G2, if you were to recommend Lee, what are your thoughts?
You know, if respectfully speaking, if the budget is available, the G3 has the new processor. It has all these new features that we didn't even talk about yet. So there are some nice enhancements. The panel itself is about 20% brighter without MLA. But I would call it a very nice moderate enhancement over a G2. It's not as big a jump as it would be for a 77 or smaller because it doesn't have the MLA. So it's a nice moderate enhancement. But the G2 right now in the 83 is on a very aggressive price.
Yes, it is.
The price performance is a G2.
Yeah.
Well, I would say too, to add to that, Robert, I mean, I know that their pixel boosting, what they did with the C2 over the C1, even though it didn't measure brighter, I noticed that it was cleaner.
Yes, it
than
is.
the C1. So
Right.
I imagine we're going to see the same thing with the C3 to the
Yes.
C2. And they're saying that that same technology, that pixel APL boost, is going to be on the 83-inch.
It is.
So, and I think, Lee, if you're dropping $50 on the super chat, if you have the money, I would go for the extra processing.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to get an 83, for myself, I wouldn't, because I already have one. I would never upgrade. I'd wait for it. But since you're going for your first time in the pool, I would go with the newer with all the extra enhancements we're talking about. And the way this menu is set up, it's a must.
Yeah. And wait till you hear about the tone mapping advantages of the G3. This is another big upgrade. I'm so anxious for you to jump into that. Okay.
I just wanted to adjust the exposure on this so you guys can see how much brighter the LG is. It's actually preserving all of that gradient and warmth. And even then, it looks like the Sony has it, but it doesn't. It's just the LG is so bright. All the warmth that you see in the Sony and all the gradient, it's in the LG. It's just the LG is so much brighter.
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys just don't understand. This looks identical perceptually, but the LG just has more pop without losing any of that color saturation. And even though I'm lowering the exposure as much as I can, it's still not, yeah, there's nothing it can do.
Yeah. You have to see this in person, really. You're doing a great job with it, and it's very close to what you're seeing in real life.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. I lowered the exposure a touch more.
Good.
And so now you're seeing, okay, yeah,
Right.
these are great. These are great ones for me to low exposure just a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Okay, much better.
And guys, take a second and just tap that like button for us. We have about 580 watching and only about 99 likes. Just throw a little tap in there for us.
So Brian, you're the big go home kind of guy, but seeing the improvement on the G3, that has such a good question. The 77-inch G3 or the 83-inch G2 or G3 without the MLA. So basically, you, Brian, price being very similar, which one would you choose?
Well, I mean, it's a loaded question, by the way.
Yes,
because I'll tell you this, and you guys that aren't in the heavyweight division, there is no going down. And I will tell you, moving closer to the TV does not change the size. You can put the thing in your lap.
That's right.
If you are coming from 65 and you want the best, I would say then I would go with the 77 because it is a big enough jump. I think, you know, with OLEDs, I think with LEDs, you go 85, the image can look a little soft just because it's the contrast ratio, not the size. But I sure as heck wouldn't go down. I mean, I don't care what the 77-inch looks like. It could be made by NASA. I'm not going that way. I'll wait.
Now,
But hold on,
which
but I'll say this though. And Robert was there. When I came out of the theater, I was really considering buying the 900C this year.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen the 900C. We're going to see it next week. And I was literally going to order it. Once I saw the G3, I'm like, I think I'm going to wait a year. So
Yes.
that's how impressed I was with it. And
Yeah.
that's a true story. I came out, I'm like, yeah, forget it. We'll wait.
And another question for gamers from Gamers, Brian. So Jan has the C10. Which TV do you recommend this year over the C10, the S95C or the G3? Which is more mind-blowing for movies and games?
Well, I mean, in fairness,
Yeah.
I haven't spent a lot of time with the S95C, but I just have a hard time with Samsung. The S95B last year was one of the best TVs I have ever seen.
Yes.
And they reined it back. And I think they'll do it again. And I know this is my own thoughts. I just know that TV is not a priority for Samsung. So as far as their updates, I just do not, it's not a conspiracy. I just don't trust them in that regard. And I do think the heatsink is there to protect the panel,
Yes.
more so than Samsung's heat pad. And I think if I could trust Samsung's quality control and their firmware updates, I might lean towards them. But just with the way their history has been with these updates, even just now with the HDIG, which Jan is the biggest, the HDIG is a must on the G3. If it's not working on the Samsung, then I can't recommend it at all for gaming. Because I mean, it's with as bright as the S95C is and the G3. When I put dynamic tone mapping on, it was just too bright. The HDIG was a must.
Yes.
So I would say right now, G3.
Yes.
They're both mind-blowing, I should say.
Yes.
Yep. And what I'm going to do is, and I think this is one where a lot of people, well, let's get into the...
There's a squirrel. That's a new one. It's a new picture.
I know that. The squirrel is the new one, right?
We know that. So all of us in the chat even know this by heart. Robert, you and I know this disc by heart. The minute you see an animal you haven't seen, like, oh, that's a new one. That's a new squirrel.
This is pretty impressive. The LG and the Sony, very similar.
Yes. Yes.
In certain shots, they look almost exactly the same.
Yeah. And this is a 2000. So it's not a cut and dry. It's always LG, right? When the content is there, they're very similar. It's when the content is pushing it to the next level. So for example, let's say I take it to Dolby Vision, 10,000 nit.
Right.
This, let's see what it does. This is why, all right, squirrel, oh, it's the same.
It is.
So it's a Dolby Vision thing, folks.
Yeah.
It's a Dolby Vision thing. This is not a Sony thing. Sony got it right. Dolby Vision wants to take the image down and separate the yellow. Yes. And this is, creator's intent. This is what it is. This is what they're doing.
That is.
Ebenezer has a great comment here where he says, I love this watch. Crazy how similar they look. The LG isn't even calibrated.
I know.
I mean, they've come a really long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this watch.
Isn't it great? Okay, so let's do some uniformity patterns, because my number one complaint last year was uniformity issue.
Well, quickly before we move on, FOMO, are you seeing right there, are you seeing any lifted blacks?
No. Oh, actually,
I mean,
the Sony black is a touch blacker in the darkest part of that image.
Yes,
so
it is.
If
that is correct.
Increase that real quick so you guys can see. Okay, so maybe you could see this. So the Sony, that darkest part is just a touch darker, but it's so subtle, and maybe it's a calibration thing. Yeah. So when John is done, then we could do some comparisons, right? Now, John wants us to do a 4000 nit, and 4000 nit is the hardest for all these TVs to tone map. Oh, wait, John, they removed the 4000 nit. Stacy did not have a 4000 nit version of this video, probably because of the issues.
Didn't they do 10,000?
Well, yeah, we did
10,000.
Let's try 10,000. HDR 10,000. All right, let's do it.
10,000, baby.
That's close enough, John. All right, actually, let's do 10,000 on the Tulip.
Please. Fantastic.
Okay, and I'm going to get the exposure back on track. All right, go. Okay, so looks like the LG tone mapping and Sony are very similar in these ones. The hardest one to get right, and I'll show you guys. When it comes to tone mapping, it's got to be those horses. So we'll see the horses real quick, and then we'll move on.
Oh, the horses.
Yeah, those horses, the grass, the little grass, it's gone on the Sony. So let's try
the
that.
detail?
Here.
Oh, it washes out. Right. KG says we need a squirrel shot ASAP. I know we all are like that. It's just the colors in that are amazing.
Hey, Soontown Cha. If you have a super chat, thank you for the super chat. You have a question, let me know. That's next. William, you are here for the gray screen banding, dirty effect, DSC test. Yes, that's next. I just want to see how tone mapping is, 10,000 nit, with the horses, which is right here. I'll pause, and the LG wins by a landslide. So let me lower the exposure. You guys can see real quick. And okay, so as you can see, the LG has a lot more detail. LG can tone map 10,000 nit content. The reason I do air quotes is there is no 10,000 nit content out there other than the Stacey Spears pattern here or the Stacey Spears scene. If there is a 10,000 nit movie, you're going to have the Sony blowing it out. And that's why Sony likes Dolby Vision, or all TVs do, because Dolby Vision brings all of that down to what the TV is capable of. So, yeah. All right.
This is just one of the good examples of why I can't wait to talk about the tone mapping enhancements this year.
Oh, you know, this is a great segue. As I switch to this, go ahead. Yeah, do it. Go ahead,
Should we do it now?
Yeah, do
segue, baby. That's a segue. Jump in there, Robert.
It is the perfect time for this. So this is a big upgrade with this A9 Gen 6 processor. Part of it is the expression enhancer, but part of it is the tone mapping. And what they've done is, in addition to looking at if it's just HDR10, instead of just the metadata of looking at every frame by frame, they also break the screen into 20,000 little tiny blocks. And they look at the peak and minimum luminance of each one of the 20,000 little tiny blocks of each frame. And they tone map to each little detail in the image, not just to the entire peak lumens of each frame. They look at 20,000 little pieces of the image of each frame. This is an amazing upgrade. The processor has so much more memory and so much more processing power. So they break the screen into 20,000 little tiny pieces, and they look at each frame and each little piece of the image to get the entire luminance level exactly the way it was filmed originally. This is such a major advancement in dynamic tone mapping. They call it OLED Dynamic Tone Mapping Pro. So I don't know if I explained it well enough, but I certainly was trained on this very well by the engineers and the product management. This has a more dynamic, natural feeling to the images. It's amazing to have this kind of accuracy. And that's why that particular image that you showed of the horses, where you can see the blades of grass, they're looking at each blade of grass. They're not looking at the whole image. This is a whole new major advancement in tone mapping. And it doesn't matter if it's HDR10 or HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision. It's doing the same thing, breaking each frame into 20,000 little pieces, not just looking at the whole frame. I hope I'm allowed to say this because this was told to me by engineering training.
Confidence.
Yes. But this is a big upgrade. And that's why you can see that difference in that. And that was a good image to exploit that advantage we have this year.
Okay, so this is a full screen white on both TVs. And just looking straight on, bravo, LG.
Yeah, it's clean
Isn't
looking,
it?
isn't it?
It's
Yeah,
clean. I don't have to do a pixel refresh on a full white screen. So for those who are
yeah,
wondering, DSC on a full white screen, no. Uh, and I'll change the exposure up and down so you guys can see better because oftentimes YouTube doesn't capture everything. So let's do that. Right? As it
very
gets
nice.
brighter, totally clean and back to normal. And let's okay. I'm going to take up the exposure a bit because when you increase exposure, it's easier to capture some of the DSC if there is any. And I have to say, LG, okay, so for those of you who are wondering, did he get a golden sample? No. Straight from LG
That's right.
distribution. They don't know who they're sending it to. It doesn't
That's
say
right.
FOMO on the box, right?
Nope.
Because I told Robert, you got to get me one that the common user will get. And that's why the
What
last
you
2
have.
years, I've had a little bit of DSC. If this is an indication, LG will not lose this year because of DSC, fingers crossed. But this was the number one complaint. On the 65-inch size, there was very visible vertical banding 2 years straight. The 1 series, C1G1, and then C2G2.
Yeah.
This is a good sign. Now,
Yes.
it's panel lottery still, but
Yes.
randomly, to get a panel this good job, LG. So let's take it to gray. So gray is another pattern that's very difficult to get right. And I'm going to look for that gray real quick. Let's see. Well, let's field 0%, all black. Is that what it is? Okay, well, black looks black. I mean, it's a OLED. It should be, right? So, all right. So we will find. Oh, here we go. So grayscale. Field gray. Let's do that. We'll go with a 5%. So you guys can, let's start with 5%, right? 5% is a common full field. And in 5%, the Sony looks like it's flashing only because I'm running a certain FPS on my camera. It is not flashing. Actually, let me see if I can make that. Yeah, because I'm running 60 frames per second, unfortunately. So it's going to look like it's flashing. I will increase exposure a bit so you guys can see. Oops, there we go. So as you can see, even though Sony's flashing, that's just my camera. This is very good. I mean, I can see a touch, but this is typical. This is a very clean OLED as far as I'm concerned. This is not visible because I overexposed the TV and everything. And most people will say this is as good as it gets. I would not swap this TV in terms of DSC. So let me go up to slightly higher. So this one is probably 10% gray. Excellent, guys, excellent. There's a touch, but again, this is very acceptable. And I haven't done any pixel refreshes or anything, right? But and you will not see this level in real content. So that's just something for you guys to think about. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. Now, speaking of other content, since we're here, I wanted to see their brightness and SDR real quick. Oh, there's Brian. Hey, Brian, just lost you. The LG passed the uniformity with flying colors, in case you were wondering.
That's because I was outside your house switching them. I was on the West Coast.
Oh,
it came out good. Awesome.
Yes, it did. It came out excellent. All right. So I'm going to do a quick, just run sports, just to see how bright it can get. Because I have this little bright sports thing that I put into it. There we go. Okay. And you see in white, the uniformity is fine on the LG. So if you're watching Hawker at this brightness, snow, normally if you see it in real content, it would appear in the snow slight pinkish on one side and the other. On the G2, one or the other side will have this kind of slight pink tint down the side. None of that on the G3. So I think LG Display definitely focused on. What?
that skiing scene. I mean, we had one that was bad. You're like, whoa, stop skiing over there.
Yeah,
Just so
yeah.
you could see it.
No, this is pretty good. Definitely, definitely. And what was someone asked something else, but let's get to the super chats real quick. Hey HJ, Mr. Robert, the Don, Lord of Sony Council. Will
Hashtag.
Sony ever go 2.1 ports on all 4 ports on their TV soon before we all die? So a lot of gamers have been asking for this. And Robert, you're there in the meetings. What are your thoughts if you can share?
Thank you. Well, I can't say that for sure because, you know, Sony's focus is on processing image quality. And, you know, it's very easy to expand the HDMI 2.1 ports. We have a little Marantz piece that does it for $200, and it'll give you as many HDMI 2.1 ports as you want, or an audio receiver does the same thing. So I can't really say for sure, but I know that they've heard it from me and many others that the gamers want more HDMI 2.1 ports. So let's see what happens when I'm allowed to say more about the 2023 models, because right now I'm on a, you know, do not
Fair
announce.
enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
And we
So,
understand that, and for a lot of you, so you guys could understand why LG and Samsung has it and Sony doesn't. LG and Samsung have an in-house chip design,
right.
chip manufacturing facility. They're vertically integrated. They can spec 4 HDMI 2.1 ports and internalize that cost because they're making chips anyway. Sony has to outsource those chips, MediaTek, whoever, right? It's
MediaTek.
not cheap. And they have to have it custom designed for them. And if Pentonic or MediaTek through the Pentonic says, you know what, there's not enough demand for 4, buy what you want, but we're only going to give you 2, Sony could only say, okay, there's nothing more we can do. Whereas LG and Samsung can specifically create 4 because they think that separates them from the pack. And for gamers, it might be. So
yes.
But remember, Fomo, what Rob Brennan said, that in order to do the 4, it's a second SoC.
Yes, it is.
LG and Samsung are willing to do because they create them. Sony would have to pay for a second SoC. It's not as simple as 2 more ports. And he said they're just not willing to pass that on to the consumer.
Yes.
That would be, you know, while it's a couple $100 for a Switch, right, Robert? If you add that to a price of a TV, it gets expensive.
Right.
So I didn't know that it was a separate SoC for another port. I thought it was just simply 2 more ports. It's really not that.
Yeah. And John Rifamato and I were privileged to some insider information. He even more so than me.
Now, what
I don't know
was
if I'm allowed to tell everything that John's been through. But
so, John, why is 4,000 nit content important again? Because I know 10,000 nit, the Sony failed miserably in terms of tone mapping the darkest areas while preserving that brightness. What is this about the 4,000 nit that's special? I must have missed it. Oh wait, we were going to do the wizard, right? Let's do the wizard.
So John's saying what? Do 4,000 nits on the demo material?
Yeah, he wants the 4,000 at the demo material. But before we do that, let me run the wizard, and then we can see if it changes anything in terms of skin tone, because I think the skin tone is a really great way to see.
It all depends on what your preference is. If you like it more saturated,
you want a pale looking person to look like it just got out of a sunburn. Wizard all day long.
Yeah, the pictures are pretty cool.
Something I also wanted to mention was so Classy also wants to mention, because a lot of people are commenting about the white balance differences. So you have 2 different technologies as well. You have the WOLED, you have the QD OLED. You have to choose your white balance poison, right? A camera is not our eyes. Our eyes could handle a bunch of different whites and separate it, and it would look normal or whatever. So the camera is white balanced to make one TV look more accurate than the other. It is nearly impossible to get it right. Even when you see it as looking the same on the camera, there's always a shift. It's more sensitive to blue, whatever it is. So that's why listen to what we say more so than trusting your eyes, because your eyes cannot trust what the camera has captured and then what YouTube is then reformatting. So that's just something to keep in mind. So thank you.
And even when LGs are alone, they look blue. when you're on YouTube.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a face that I think is very sensitive to color changes. And this would be actually not her. It would be,
The redhead.
I should be memorizing, her.
It's the red.
Because just a little green, just a little red, it changes everything so drastically. So let's do our picture wizard, right? So you guys see, this is a great one because both are so similar. Ignore the white background, right? The white balance is different. So, but the faces are very similar. So let's look at the faces. Let's go through the picture wizard and see what happens next. So I have to remember, how do we get through there again? I think it's picture mode,
Just
advanced settings.
When you go back up one more.
Oh, wait, is it general? Oh, this one. Yeah, this is it. Personalized picture wizard. Okay, so everybody, this is the game changer that I think. So we go through this process and we see what we prefer, right? So we're going to start. So shall we begin? Select 2 images with preferred picture quality among the images. Let me lower this a bit. I'm going to lower the exposure so you guys can better see what I'm seeing.
Now remember, as FOMO chooses this, it's his preference. So us seeing this in person, one is more saturated, one is cooler.
Now,
he's going to choose what he likes.
I prefer a sky that looks blue. So I'm choosing this one. And choose 2 images. And I like to see this dynamic range because this is the one with the cactus. So I'm going to choose this one. Next. All right, choose 2 images, preferred picture quality among the images. I like this one. Oh, I like this one. This is dramatic. Okay. Well, okay, it's like choose a cartoon or choose a real flower. All right, choose 2 images preferred. So I'm afraid if I choose any of these cartoons, I'm going to end up with something that's so. We'll have fun with that another time, but because I know I'm going to look at this like, what is this? A crayon drawing?
You're like Warner Brothers, Disney. What do you want, Picker? What do you want?
Geez. Yeah, this is literally like
it's like that. Are you a robot thing that you see?
Just throwing random colors on the floor. Okay, like
Transformers.
Okay, I like this. I do like the subtleties, and I like this. This is very compelling. I love that contrasty look sometimes. Oh, okay. This popped out to me. This is what we call, I don't know.
Isn't it cool how it feeds you these different images? Because I didn't see those same images. So they must switch them around depending on what you choose.
You didn't get the cartoon images like I had last time?
Just trying to push you.
I do like this. And I like the detail of this one.
But it's cool. It's not showing you like 6 different sunflowers. That's what I think is awesome. It's kind of moving you around.
Before, after. Okay. Literally looks the same to me. Okay, no. After is a little bit brighter. It's actually, you like a clear and sharp picture. Okay, Brian, isn't that insulting? It's like, what are they going to say? You like an unclear and fuzzy picture? I mean,
like you're stupid. It looks like the Xbox HDR menu. You're like, oh wait a minute. But when you go into your preset, when it saves, it'll look different.
I have to tell you, maybe you guys can see it better if I change this a little bit. So the one on the right, the after, right? The red is a little bit, so everything's a touch oversaturated, and there's more clarity between all the parts, and that's something I did choose, right? So yeah, let's apply. Let's do this.
So then when you go into your presets, when you compare that to standard, vivid, you'll see the difference.
Oh, okay. You know what? Her face suddenly started popping again. Okay, so.
Is the Sony dimming or is it, Sony looks darker now?
Yeah, the Sony is, well, you saw what happened, right? I prefer a brighter, punchier picture.
Now you're picking women. What the heck? You're choosing the women you want.
So this is what happened is I want, so this is, clearly this works very well. I mean, this is an image I enjoy. Not Don't get me in trouble, Brian. Not my taste of movie.
Yeah.
necessarily,
And I'm gonna,
but this is the image I enjoy.
this
Now, if
isn't
I
Total
chose-
Recall,
if I,
FOMO.
if I chose a cartoon flower, the question is, what would happen to this poor girl, right?
I think you should do it again and just go crazy. Pick all the vivid stuff and see what happens. She might turn out being, totally different. She might
we
be
have
animated.
more fun with the picture. So the picture wizard definitely is consistent with what I'm choosing. Everything looks like it's tight. It's a little bit sharper, more contrasty. Doesn't mean it's accurate. And clearly you're having fun with this, right? They're not going accuracy, but hopefully you guys can see the difference. And you guys, if you guys saw my Samsung review, you notice, oh yeah, this one's, I'm used to this picture a lot, and definitely it's like they added a second key light on her face. Let me turn up the exposure a bit more because it's a little bit dark here. Okay.
So I mean, for like Battech, we're saying this isn't a calibration tool. This is just for you to
this
find.
is not a
what you
calibration
prefer.
tool. So let me explain, right? A lot of you do not like calibrated D65. A lot of you do. Those of you who like calibrated D65, you know what you have to do. Filmmaker, call it a day. But many of you, including Brandon, myself, sometimes you're watching a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy, you're like, okay, let's have fun with this movie. Use the wizard and see what happens. You could always reverse it, guys, right? It's not like a firmware update where there's no return to the past.
Yeah,
You could have fun with it.
it's what you want to do.
This is it. But yeah,
Well,
definitely
I mean,
punchier.
Well, for Battech too, I think what you find is that with the pictures, you can't really see them on the stream, but you can actually choose the more accurate pictures, and then you would find probably closer to filmmaker mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting because the pictures are different for every section. But if you chose something that was more accurate, it would lead you that way, and I think then you'd have your own filmmaker mode, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And if you look, FOMO, if you look into the preset, the actual preset, you'll see the adjustments that were made. Well, maybe not in HDR, but in SDR, you can actually see where the contrast is lowered, and they've changed the settings for you there.
Let me go into the group pictures so you guys can see all the differences. Okay. So definitely it feels like, so in terms of technical, what they appear to have done is raise the midtone brightness, increase the contrast a little bit, separated the peak. So if you have brightness, a peak and a dark, I can see that they raised the peak a little bit so that everything that's a little bit highlighted is highlighted even more. And so look at her watch, right? So the girl on the bottom wearing the watch, her watch sparkles more because of what I chose. Whereas before, it was very similar. The Sony and the LG, very similar in every way. But then the minute I went through the wizard, suddenly the watch is starting to pop. This is something that, wow, this is OLED for me. But maybe in some movies, this might be too much. So let's look at real content and see how that changes everything. And well, and we're going to go into the low knit colors from Illusionist and all that things right after this, because I think someone mentioned that maybe the G3 might have an issue with that as well.
So what preset are you in? So that preset, are you in Dolby Vision? What are you in?
I am in, so this is regular HDR right now.
So it'd be interesting. If you go into the personalized preset, go into advanced settings and see what it looks like.
Okay, so we're in HDR now. This is not Dolby Vision. And let's see what that preset looks like. So let me see. It'll probably say personal, right? So
I'm not sure it changed. Yeah, it'll be the personalized one. It should be the one that
there you go, personalized.
Yep. So go into advanced settings.
Okay.
And it should still be there and see if it changed anything. It might have changed. It might have added dynamic contrast. It might have done something to it.
Oh, definitely. I bet you there's a lot of blue. See the color? You can adjust it. Yeah. So this is my preference.
It might have enabled clarity. It might have enabled some of the stuff off or on.
And what you guys are seeing on YouTube, I'm seeing. There is definitely more blue now. So as you can see, if I saw this, I'd be like, okay, there's too much blue. When there's color, I didn't notice the extra blue.
Right.
But in content like this, oh, there's just way too much blue. So I'd probably turn it off if there's a lot of snow. There is no doubt about it.
You picked the wrong cartoon, FOMO. What do you got, Sonic the Hedgehog over there?
I definitely picked the wrong cartoon here. Yeah, there's just way too much blue. As you can see, it doesn't always pick your wizard.
Damn Total Recall.
on faces, it looks great, but on a deer, it's like the deer is a zombie, right? It's like, wait, it's like coming out of the apocalypse. So the wizard doesn't always work. Let's start choosing cartoons now and see what happens.
But if you look at the reflections here, you can see a difference in the clarity of the reflections.
All right, let's just redo this. Apparently I screwed up. All right, so this is, and okay, I do like this. This is obviously not a good thing, but I do like this. This almost feels like I'm going through the, okay, here we go, cartoon time. Let's do this.
Yeah, push it hard. See what it can do.
All right, here we go. This is another cartoon. Get some balance in there. Let's see what it does. Okay.
Look at the Sony. The Sony's just sitting there being like, I'm just being accurate over here. It's just waiting on deck.
All right, let's see. You like a bright picture. That's it. That's the conclusion. Okay, so as you can see, the adjustment is not necessarily brighter, by the way.
No, it's dimmer. It's bluer.
And it's you know, okay, I can't see the difference. I'm gonna have to use faces. I'm sorry. You know, the mountains.
I cannot get Total Recall out of my mind. What kind of woman you like? Demure. If you guys remember Total Recall in the chat, let me know.
I do. Let's go to
it's like demure, athletic. That's funny.
Okay, so it looked even brighter than the last time. Yeah, so it feels like it's brighter. It's over brightened. So there is less color gradient detail. Definitely, guys, play with it. I think it's more appropriate for video gaming. If I was watching a movie, I probably would not use the wizard. Unless
you're rocking Avatar. You rock some Avatar, baby. Them blue faces, you love it.
Okay. If you could answer some questions real quick, Brian, and go through that, I'm going to switch over to Cloudescape and do the low nit content so we can see how it does. Where the Sony didn't do well, can the LG do better? Real quick. So let me pull out my stuff.
We have a super chat. Well, I'll save that for when you come back.
Oh, actually, you know, if there's a super chat, let me cover it now. What's
a
the
quick one from 846?
Oh,
EHJ.
Is this the one?
Yep.
All these great TVs and no 3D on them. Yeah, none.
Well, Robert, you gotta hook them up with a projector, my friend. Robert can put you in a projector if you like with some 3D, absolutely. Right, Robert?
Yes, that's right.
We're laughing about Total Recall in the chat. You guys remember that? He's like, tell me the kind of girl you want. Be honest. He's like, athletic, demure. Let's see who we got. Hope you guys are enjoying the stream. Please hit like, everyone.
And if you guys just joined us when we did the Uniformity, the LG passed with flying colors. It was, I mean, you could say there's a negligible difference between the Sony and the G3, with the Sony being slightly in a gray pattern, but it's just so, unless you're running a gray, you would not be able to tell the difference in content. As far as I'm concerned, it's a success for the G3. So definitely a great job.
Celsian, was there noticeable vertical banding on 5% gray?
Nope.
On the it's bad enough to see on my C7 movies like Hunter Killer and Bourne movies. Unfortunately, there's some banding on a lot of OLEDs, but I've noticed a lot of it is content dependent. If you have, especially a lot of like Callisto Protocol and gaming, Bourne are terrible Blu-ray releases or 4K releases. So you're definitely going to see more banding on poor content, even if it's 4K content. I've noticed that in some raised games, banding is everywhere on anything, LEDs and any OLED. So a lot of it is content dependent. But I know our version, the ones we saw in Value Electronics, are clean. Mm-hmm. And banding is a little worse on larger sizes. Oh, copyright time, baby. Better speed it up. Speed it up, Homo. Speed it up.
Wait. Let me pause. You're right. 1 second. Let me speed it
You
up.
gotta speed it up. Don't get caught.
Oh,
Hope you guys are having a great time. We're going to be doing this next weekend at Value Electronics. We are going to have the 77-inch S95C go against the LG G3. The reason you're seeing the A95K is because we're saving that for an in-person event at Value Electronics. Saturday, we'll be having an open box, out-of-the-box, fun situation. Sunday, we will reel them in, have things calibrated, and be more accurate.
Yes, thank you.
So make sure you tune in. But this is why you're seeing the A95K here instead of the S95C. The 77s, I think we agree, Robert, that that's going to be the kind of crown jewel of both manufacturers.
and for you guys, I did switch it to Filmmaker mode. So it's on Filmmaker mode. It's back into its most accurate mode.
Yes.
Filmmaker's a beast. It's a beast.
What do you see? Is the Sony? Is it undersaturated? No, the Sony is, and the G3 is not. Good job.
And I see more shadow detail on the G3.
Yeah. Well, that's probably because it's brighter. Also, Saturday and Sunday, we're going to release some more very new information about some of the advancements that they've developed. So Saturday and Sunday is very important for everybody to tune in.
Emilio said, just
goodness.
take the prison time.
We're saving some very good stuff for our next presentation.
Yes, thank you again, Robert, for generously letting Brian and I borrow your room. Okay, so let's walk through this. As you can see, the Sony still undersaturated in the red, and the G3 not as much. Now, is it undersaturated compared to the reference monitor? We will only know at the shootout, right, Robert? Because I just know that the Sony is undersaturated. The G3, whether it's saturated enough or not, is up to debate. The S95C is not calibrated. So the S95C may be oversaturated, but for sure, the G3 is not as undersaturated as the LG. And then
what I love from the LG though is the color does look QD OLED-ish, doesn't it? It does have that color.
It does, yes. Yes.
Be careful.
Yeah, all right, wait, this it's coming up and boom. Okay.
The anime is so much better, by the way, the Battle Angel for the you fans in the chat. The anime kills it. Michael, we haven't seen the LZ 2000 from Panasonic, my friend. Oh, your LZ. I got you. Yours is okay.
Okay, so let's go on to the next. So as you can see, that's that. Let's go to the Illusionist. This is the Illusionist.
Robert Kyle is asking when the C3s, you'll be seeing C3s in the store. Do you have a kind of a time frame for those?
C3 is next week.
Next week? We have sizes?
I think we're going to get all sizes next week.
There you go, Kyle. Value Electronics will have
83-inch, yeah.
This is overexposed, guys. That's why it looks like it's clipping, because I need to raise it so you guys see the difference in the lower luminance part of the scene. So we're getting there.
Blooming on your OLED.
I know.
I always hear that. Got blooming on your OLED.
Okay. It's handshake issues. Yep. We'll see. Oh, there you go.
Welcome, Kyle.
And yeah, the Sony is slightly. Let me get to this scene. There we go. Okay.
And Kyle, I think you'll enjoy the C3. It won't be as sexy as an upgrade, but it's still an upgrade nonetheless. What's up, Max? Max is in the chat. Max Chambliss, what's up, brother?
I'm not able to overexpose it enough, but in this scene, it actually looks like the LG. It's hard to see. The Sony definitely, we know, is undersaturated. The LG, there's color, but because it's so dark, it's hard to tell. So let's go to the next one, Ford versus Ferrari. So that one in the Illusionist, it's hard to say definitively if the G3 is desaturated because it's so dark. I mean, there may be a little bit of black crushing. If anything gets me shut down, it could be this one.
Somebody said in the comments, they go, just take the prison time, FOMO. Just take a hit for the team. Man,
they're gonna hit me through the door right now.
You better throw him some legs, guys, if you're gonna take the prison time.
Yeah.
516.
And
I missed
please,
it. I
please
had my
forgive,
shot. I missed it. Oh well. You guys will have to do it during the actual shootout. Yes, you're gonna say something, Robert?
please forgive the plug, but Peanut Brooks asked, where can you get a G3 now?
Only one place.
I
Only
know we can get
one
one.
place. Right now, if you order this week, only Value Electronics, Robert Zone. I think it's in my in video description below in my link, but just go valueelectronics.com, give Robert a call. And if you missed it and you're worried about burn-in, right? Part of what he does with our viewers and subscribers, because he loves you all so much, is
Yes.
he will package the bundle deal with some sort of extended warranty. Just give him a call and see what you could do, because that 4-year extended warranty is kind of important if you are
Yes.
concerned about burn-in, especially given what has been shown by ratings. But if your content, I don't think it matters. And hey, Dwayne, good to see you,
What's up,
buddy.
Dwayne?
Yay,
How you doing,
Of
Dwayne.
brother?
course,
And we got Dennis Seymour also in the chat.
Matt Tech wants to have you been given permission to leak the service menu? I don't know if it's a smart thing for LG to do that, but hey, you know what? If they do, they do, right? Wayne, let us know. But hey, thanks for joining us, buddy.
And Robert, you want to shout out Dennis Sr.?
Oh, yeah, he's beautiful. What a great guy that is. You bet.
Hello, Dennis. Thanks for jumping in, my friend.
Yes.
G3 looks excellent from the stream. Okay, so for those of you who just joined us, let me give you some quick thoughts, what we've seen so far for sure. First, uniformity DSE on my TV, solved. I didn't see any uniformity issues in full white, in 5%, 10 or 15%. It looked as clean. Well, actually, it looked cleaner than any other OLED, WOLED I had before, starting with the A9G, the A90J, the C1, and last year's G2. This has been the cleanest of all of them. How does it compare to QD OLED? Arguably, QD OLED may have 5% advantage, but it's not noticeable short of that, because I went through different scenes with snow and stuff, and I did not see it in real content at all. So as far as I'm concerned, the panel lottery is always alive and well, but I won the panel lottery this time. And at the 65-inch, that's very hard to win. Now, as far as magenta tinting, I didn't notice that either. So I think LG Display, the source company that supplies it to both Sony, Philips, Panasonic, as well as LG, it was on them to fix that. LG Electronics does not have control. So this one is applause for LG Display, which I hope to have on at some point next month. So second part is brightness. Clearly, the G3 is brighter than the A95K QD OLED. Now, many of you say, oh, it's not fair because this is last year's model, but the A95L is not available for sale yet. The question is, how will it do head-to-head against the S95C? And we will have that matchup next week at Value Electronics, where we will put the G3 against the S95C in all its modes, gaming, SDR, HDR, everything, sports, and just push them, the S95C and the G3, to their limits to see what happens. And if they survive, the following day, LG engineers will fix the TVs if we break it and try it again. This time, making sure it's calibrated properly and see what they can do in their best mode. Both of them, right? Having the S95C calibrated and the G3. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. Also, on Saturday and Sunday, we'll release some more information as to why you see more color saturation on the red dress in low lumens areas. We can explain that technically. I can answer all those things.
Yes,
there's a reason for that. And I'm going to try to see if I can get that reference monitor, the 310.
Oh, if you can, that'd be, because
that's what we need.
So many people are saying, frankly, August is too long to wait. And the shootout, even though we'll be hosting it and we're going to have so much fun at the shootout, people are buying TVs now, and they may not be Sony fans per se. They might just want to get either the Samsung or the LG. And so for you guys, this is it. Now for Sony fans, wait, right? There's no problem waiting until August for the full shootout. But for those who are debating between two really good TVs, LG and Samsung, we're going to have a mini comparison. We're not going to crown anyone, but we're going to tell you our favorites, and we'll be able to kind of have some conclusions for sure. But this is so exciting.
Well, and guys, comparing last year is always valuable. I mean, I heard people say to me, comparing it's not fair. Well, guys, I mean, the A95L is coming out in months from now. We always have some kind of overlap. We always want to see where we've come from. And even if you think the A95K is not doing well, it's still gorgeous. I mean, I've seen them both live. Even though it is a big leap in the way we're describing it, it's still incremental in many ways. So I think having them compared is always a good way to see from where we are.
Right.
What's up, TK? Most Def?
Yes.
I don't think Robert knows that there will be drinking at Val Electronics. I don't know if it's allowed, right?
No. We're not me. No more live streams for me. I'm having a couple cocktails. KG and Max, no more for you. No more getting
This
fired up.
regular HDR material, the G3 at 100%, most accurate, is definitely brighter than the Sony. So the Sony is being held back, or the Sony is holding itself back. Basically, the A95L will be brighter. It has to be, right?
Yes, it will be.
A95C is brighter, and the G3 is brighter. Basically, all the competitors have raised their game to match to the source. This is not artificially bright. This is not over brightening. This is what the source is telling you it should be. And the A95K simply couldn't keep up. So first it got punched in the face with the S95C. Now the G3 just punched it again. So Sony, they expect the discounts to hit hard, heavy and hard. So this goes to, well, when should you get the Sony? It's a great TV. You can get it. I mean, we are just incredibly critical. If you're watching movies like 1917, concerts, TV, streaming, A95K is more than good enough.
Beautiful.
But if you're like, you know what, money is no object, get me the best, then you got to wait for the A95L or get the G3 or the S95C. And only the A95L is available in 77-inch from Sony as far as QD OLED. And Samsung has the 77-inch in both the S95C and the S90C.
Yes.
Which, Robert, I guess it will be releasing later this month, the S90C?
End of April.
End of April, okay. And then, of course, the G3 is available now. In what sizes, Robert, are the G3 available?
Right this minute, 55 and 65. But next week, we're going to have 77 and 83 also.
And, Robert, will a 77-inch Z3 be released in the USA this year?
Okay, and I'm glad you said USA because it is going to be released in the UK and in Asia. It's unlikely, but it's possible that we'll have it towards the end of this model year or the middle of the model year. Not soon, that's for sure. If we have it at all, and it'll only be the 77, not the 88. It's more likely they're going to continue with the Z2 for this year.
Thank you, Robert. And that's
going to be cool. What's also be great, guys, though, for when Sony coming out so late in the year, we're going to be able to see where the other two are in terms of their updates.
Yes.
So Sony does that advantage. And then this year, too, with all the gaming additions to the Sony, it makes it a little harder to choose which is which. And then remember, the Master Series, this is the one true Master Series this year's for Sony. And they've kind of did that on purpose. They don't have another Master Series. This thing is going to be built like a tank. And for those of you that haven't seen the A95K in person, even if you don't like the body of it, it is built like a tank. Beautiful. And the S95 is very flimsy. So you are paying for a bit more in other ways.
And I think Disco Dick is asking a great question. The C10, is it worth upgrading to the G3? Now, the question for you, Robert, is, well, G3 is a premium right now. What is on sale is the G2 and the A95K.
Yes.
And I know you're getting a lot of promotions right now. So if you have a C10, and maybe he should consider getting a slightly larger, either a G2 or a C2 or A95K, what are the best deals right now on the 2022 models that you can share with us?
Well, thank you. And right now, Sony is very aggressive on the A95K. The 65-inch is $25.99, free delivery nationwide. Some bonus money that we have for being a
and the bonus money, if you're afraid of burn-in, you can apply it to an extended warranty.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And there's some very aggressive promotions on right now for the sort of near the end of the model year. So $25.99 versus a C3 65-inch, which is $32.99.
Yep.
You know, and there's some other little features on the Sony that, you know, you may want to mention or not. Bravia camera, the 2 years free of Bravia Cam. The audio is very good. The built-in, you can use the actuators as your center channel speaker. But there's also some things that we didn't bring up yet because we're already on for 2 hours. So I don't know how much more you want to stay. But there's so much more to talk about the G3. And one thing I cannot forget to at least bring up, I'm in love with this sound bar that LG came out with, the SC9. It is crazy good, and it was designed for the C3 and G3. It's a 3.1.3. It has 3 upfiring
You know what,
Dolby.
Robert? I'm gonna bring my immersive headphone microphones.
Yes,
immersive
yes, yes,
microphones.
yes.
So we can do some comparisons. And so even though it's only
That's
stereo,
so cool.
it'll
That
be a
is so
spatial
cool.
microphone, so we can see the differences and so forth. So we'll have fun with
Yes.
it. It may do nothing because of YouTube compression being what it is, but maybe it will, and you guys can share with me if you hear
Yeah.
the difference.
And we'll have that piece with us, by the way. LG is giving us one of those SC9s. It is crazy good. It uses all the TV speakers also. It
Mhm.
gives you a larger sound stage, a more detailed clarity of dialogue. It gives you many more channels than what it actually has. It's really a nice big integration of the upgrade of integrating the audio.
And just for those who are asking, I got a C10, a C1. Should I get a G3? So just to give it balance, I am putting out the most challenging materials that you may not end up watching. And if you don't push it to its limit, you're not going to see the differences. If you watch basic Netflix and you
Yeah.
watch it in the dark, you might as well just get an A2, right? The
Yes.
key is, are you playing video games with? If you're playing HDR video games, you almost have to get a G3, because the G3 can then push it to the creator's intent of what's the brightness you need, what's the APL you need, right? The HGIG, the processor is faster. It pushes that entire video game experience to that level that you're pushing with your PC gaming experience. But if you're not a gamer and you're watching just SDR on Netflix and 1080p, what is your content? Robo37 and everyone else who has a C1 or C10, I would always say you will get more of an upgrade if you get a larger C2, right?
Mhm.
If you have a
Yes.
C1 and you're ready to upgrade and your budget is $4,000, get the 83-inch C2, which is currently on sale for $4,000.
And
That
then
is
get the
83 inch,
immersion.
right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like
And
you're
that's
going from a 65 to 83, the world has changed.
And I think that's the trap right there. Is if, for instance, the guy that had the CX or even the C1, yes, they're better, but I can't recommend going from a 65-inch C1 to a 65-inch G3. You'll
Right.
see a difference, but that's chasing the flagship, and I think it's not noticeable enough. I always recommend upgrading when you go up in size.
Yeah.
Or if you have a much lesser TV, if you have something that's really bare bones, you'll see a difference. But very hard to recommend a CX at 65. Well, maybe a CX that's getting up there in age, but going to a G3 at the same size, you're really paying for, pay for the immersion too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And here's a great comment. The G3 versus the A95L is the real title fight. The A95L is going to be a bit more expensive than the
Yes.
G3. So here's the
Oh,
problem
yeah.
for Sony. It's a title fight, but if Sony wins, you're like, well, you're paying extra, what, 1,500? It should win. So Sony is really kind of on the ropes, where if it loses by this time, the G3 will be discounted after Prime Day a little bit, and Sony is just
Yeah.
being launched. Sony must win. It's not, it's kind of like it has no choice. But I do think it's going to be a great title fight for sure, because Sony is known for its accuracy. And we're going to redo a lot of our movie content during judging at the Shootout, so that
Yes.
it pushes both TVs into
Yes.
their strengths and their weaknesses for sure. So, yep.
Well, and that's the risk that Sony always takes, especially with Samsung releasing their 8K TVs, Robert, so early that
Yes.
by the time Sony's come out, a lot of times they drop by 30% by the end of the year.
Mhm.
So Sony's used to dealing with that, the discount. So I think they're used to it. I would imagine they know that they're releasing it later in the year.
Oh, this is a great request. And before we get to the request, thank you, HJ, for the super chat, just to tell us to click like. Over 500 in chat.
Come on, guys. It takes 2 seconds. It's a big, it's a big, it's a little
Can we
click.
get the like game up? If the LG
You can actually see it on your phone.
Shootout for the upgraded value they want on sales. Oh yeah.
Good.
And again, sales of G3 right now, if you want to buy one, only Valley Electronics. Give Robert a call just to talk. Just say, hey, Robert, this is my issue. He might end up recommending an 83-inch C2 for the budget, because at the end of the day, he wants your loyalty, because he is an enthusiast just like you guys, right?
Correct.
And lastly, can you switch on the lights and show us the new anti-reflective coating? So
it's really a good thing. Yes.
The best way to show it off, I'm going to put it on a dark gray throw on the light, and then you can see some content with light on it. So as you guys answer questions, let me do that. And okay, real quick.
I want to comment on that because this is very interesting. A glossy screen will always give you the sharpest and best image with the best blacks. A matte screen does not do that. So, however, they have a glossy screen and they have a fabulous anti-glare coating on the. There is reflection when the screen goes to very dark, but it's minimal compared to what it was or is on all other OLEDs. This was another big advancement, this new anti-glare coating that they have. So now you can use it with light directly opposite the TV behind where you're sitting. You could never do that before.
Well,
So
and to prove that, right, Robert, when we did it in the store,
yeah,
we typically do the unboxings in the front so we can see the store. Then we move the TVs to the back.
yes,
Didn't need to do that. We actually filmed it in the front of the store.
that's right. And we have big, giant store windows and big skylight. This is the most serious enemy of all video displays. And it's remarkable to see how minimal the glare and reflection is. It's still there, but it's greatly improved.
Well, we know the OLEDs in the past, the black level became a mirror. They did fine with color, but they did minimize it quite a bit.
Yes, quite a bit. Yes.
And we were talking about too, Robert, the whole thing of buying a larger panel. If somebody says to you, hey, I'm looking for this TV, I can't stress enough that going down in size. So if you're somebody that has a 77-inch TV or an 85, it's hard for me to recommend you saying, hey, Robert, I really want a 65-inch A9.
Right.
I think some people make that mistake. They go after the higher specs, and sometimes they actually want to go down in size. We saw that last year with the QD OLEDs, and it was a mistake for many people.
Right. And somebody asked in the chat, how much is the G3 stand? Depending upon which stand, but it's about $150. And our 5% store credit that we're going to give you will buy you the stand and pay for it.
Robert, do you do those Santa stands for sale? The ones
yes,
that we use
I love them, by the way.
How much are those? Because people are killing me with that. They want to know what those cost.
I think it's 145.
See, what I like about the Santa stands is that you can actually raise them and lower them.
Yes.
So I know if I buy the 900C, I know I can't use the Samsung stand in this part. I'd have to lower it, and that stand is the way to do it.
Right. You can put a sound bar or a center channel or your cable box underneath, and you set the height of it. You can also rotate it left and right. I love the Santa stand. It's very sturdy. It's very
cool.
Reasonably priced.
Well, they're just easy to set up. You got a new one that's 83-inch. What is that, FOMO?
This is my lantern bulb thing that I use to test reflection.
You got the bat signal?
Yeah.
The bat signal, baby.
What I'm going to do is turn up the brightness just a little bit so you guys can see some relative brightness. And let's turn up the lumens here.
That's terrific, FOMO, that you can put it on both screens. Very smart.
You like that?
Yes, I like it.
I'm a pro. What can I say?
What is it? What else? There has to be another use case for that. You didn't just buy that for that, did you?
No. I use this to light up my room when I need to.
Just
you got a key light, you got a background light, and this lantern is amazing.
I'm not picking you up at the airport if you're bringing that thing.
Okay, so the key is I'm going to put on real content so you guys can see. I'll take this one off because it's not as good. And then you can see how it is. So this is gray, right? Obviously, it's just gray. There's no big deal. But we'll put it on some content. And then you can see once it turns off, that's the reflection is very similar on both, by the way. I'm not seeing a huge difference, just so you guys know. And we're going to go to that sports thing because that one's pretty bright.
D Nice is saying the G3's filter diffuses light more than the A95K.
So I'm blasting the brightness to almost 100%. As you can see in real content, you could barely see this.
I laugh. You pull that light away and it burns in. Why are you shooting lasers at your TVs, bro?
All right, so I'm overexposing just a touch so you could kind of see, or maybe I should underexpose it so you can see it Maybe that would be better, actually.
And by the way, Sam, LG discontinued the A series OLEDs for 2023. The line starts at the B. There's no more A. There's no A3. There's a B3, a C3, and a G3.
Are the Bs going to be 120, Robert? Or are they?
No, I don't think so. I think the 120 is limited to the C and G.
Okay. So for Eric, who's saying he wants a, where'd you go? Eric,
It's
for
also,
my budget.
It's also bright. It's got the 20% brighter, even if it's just a C3, not the B3 though. It's not the brighter panel.
You know, the glare isn't too bad.
So Eric, for my budget, stretching it as I'm looking at a 77-inch B2 LG as opposed to a 65 C2 for gaming, if it's 60 hertz, that might be a problem.
Yeah,
if you're gaming on PC.
Yes,
or if on anything. I mean, but that's the B2 is very good. I would just try to hang in there for the C2 to drop because it will be very affordable in a few months, right, Robert? As soon as the C3 releases.
Absolutely, you get the better processor, you get all these extra features, you get a better panel as well. The C3 is a very big upgrade from a B3.
So Eric, once the C3 releases, then look for a 77-inch C2. Don't go for the 77-inch B2 unless you're not a gamer. Then do what you like.
Yeah,
I think it's worth waiting because the 77 inches do drop quite a bit once the new one comes out.
Yeah.
So if you guys are wondering, this is a super bright light. It is a Godox VL150. It's bright, and I have it on max 100%. That's actually pretty good. But you can still see it, obviously. And you can see the anti-glare is very similar. I can't say definitively like one is, oh, it's a clear cut better than the other. I mean, both will show it, and no TV is going to eliminate glare completely. But if you switch to a gray screen, then you'll see, okay, so this is off. Obviously, it looks terrible, but you saw with content, it's not as noticeable. And let's put it on just a gray so you guys can see. But thanks for waiting up with us, guys, once again. And thank you to Robert for making this possible because he made sure that I got the G3 to have fun with it.
Yes.
The first week it came out.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go. We'll bring it a little bit closer.
Hey, FOMO, in person, because we might not see it as well in the camera. Can you see a difference in the reflection? They're very similar looking.
Yeah, no, they are. That's why.
That's good. That's good. So Sony's doing a great job there.
Oh, yeah. And if you do any more, basically, what you're going to end up losing contrast. This is the thing.
Correct.
If it's too aggressive, you lose contrast. A lot of people.
Correct.
If your room is that bright, get a mini LED. These OLEDs are designed to be watched in a light-controlled room.
Yes.
This is not light control. This is my giant lantern, and it's on full blast. And even then, in a 20% gray screen, that's what you're going to get. They're very similar. So don't choose TVs based on anti-reflection, right? It's still reflecting. It's just not. I'll put it on real content now, so you guys can see. But honestly, in any dark area of the scene, there you go. It's going to look like that. See the difference? On the left, orange, less obvious. On the right,
right.
If it's black, that's what you're going to see. If you have a window behind you and you're watching dark movies, light control. Just get, and even a mini LED will look just like this. If it's a black scene, it doesn't matter if it's a OLED, a QLED, a QN95C, it's going to have some version of this. And as you have content flow over, as you see here, it gets a little bit better. But this is super bright. If I turn it, and this is actually like an open window, it's about that bright. If you turn it down a little bit, but yeah, if you guys are in a room that's this bright, get yourself a mini LED, actually.
Yeah,
that's right.
So hopefully that answers the anti-reflective question. They're about similar. Turn that off. There we go. Okay. Any interesting questions?
No,
otherwise,
just
we're going to start wrapping up and get everyone excited for next weekend for our 2-day OLED bender. WOLED, QD OLED, all types of OLED, new OLED, old OLED.
And just a comment to Anthony Ryan in the chat. Always tell me that you came from Brian or FOMO, and you and I are going to be good
Yes.
friends forever, and you'll get the bright deal for sure.
And that goes for Tech with KG in the chat too, and some of the other guys in our group.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning
Yeah,
that.
yeah, whoever
Yep.
you remember, right? KG,
Yeah.
FOMO,
Yeah.
whatever.
KG,
A lot of
absolutely.
yeah, we all share
and be the installer as well.
Yep, we all share content, and you know we're a good
Yes.
squad. But
You bet.
you know we and
Tech with KG, you bet. Thank you.
you know,
Okay, and
shout out KG, love them rugs, baby, love them rugs.
all right, so let's wrap
Terry,
it up.
you know a guy.
We all have content. We'll start with Brian. You've been putting out some amazing stuff, Brian. People are asking, are you taking YouTube more seriously? I noticed you kind of upped your game. What's happening in your life? Are you now a full-time YouTuber? What's up, buddy?
I'm somewhat full time. I'm a family guy, so it's hard for me to be full time, but definitely, you know, better quality, spending more time on it. A lot of it is a lot of help from our good friend Robert, who gives me access to the latest TVs, which, you know, I shoot at the store. And this week, you know, I have an A95K G3 comparison that's going to be releasing. We also have the Samsung QN90C in the store at 75 inches, right, Robert?
Yes.
We may have the 900C before FOMO gets there. If that's the case, then I'll bring that in and do videos before we do our mini competition.
Yes.
So I'll be doing that, and then our tech therapy videos in between. So, and you'll see me and FOMO collaborating throughout the year. Well, we have a lot of exciting things happening, but do not miss next weekend. I mean, we're going to have a blast. And just to reiterate, that Saturday is not going to be this overly, we're free
professional.
Yeah, but if you've seen FOMO and I together, you know, you'll have us talking, you'll have Robert talking, we'll have people discussing things. You're also going to see me in the back moving TVs around. And then we'll have a more technical analysis the next day, but it's not going to be an uptight. It's going to be fun, you know, free flowing, and that way a lot of discovery happens because we can break the rules. And it's going to be very light, and you know, make sure you join us. We'll be doing. There won't be a time limit either, right? FOMO, we'll be doing things all pretty much all weekend.
I am at your mercy and beck and call, because what am I doing, right? I'm at Valley Electronics. I don't have a place to stay other than the generosity of Robert and Wendy, and so it's going to be fun. I'm there just to live and breathe all these new TVs and answer your question, because the key is on a live stream we could take our time because we have the entire day, and you know we'll miss your question, but hang around long enough, we eventually will get it, and we'll make those comparisons so that you don't have to wait for one shootout at the end of the year, because with a Sony releasing later, you're gonna have to wait until August, right? So this allows us to get an early look, calibrated, uncalibrated. So it's definitely gonna be fun. And Brian has a super chat. Thanks, Brian, for Robert, which is my question as well. I'm also interested in the 42-inch LG C3. When can we get it from Valley Electronics?
Thank you. And I'm just looking that up in my little dealer portal here, and I think I need to answer that tomorrow. It looks like. I'm sorry, Monday. Oh no, we get the answer for Saturday.
Saturday.
This coming Monday.
Okay, Monday.
That's when I'll have the answer on the 42 and 48 inch.
So what I'll do is I'll wait for Robert to email me, and I'll just post it on on my community page, and then boom, right? So thanks, Brian, for that.
Very good.
EHJ. 85-inch, 88-inch OLED in 2024. So he wants it a little bit bigger. 83, kind of weird. Are we seeing like the Z9K is an 88-inch, right? Or I'm sorry, the Z3, the 8Ks come in 88-inch. Any plans to move to a larger OLED than? I mean, you have the 97, which is way too big.
Yeah, the G2.
Sorry, EHJ. No,
not those sizes.
Not yet.
88. Not yet.
Not yet. Right. Of course, we have 88-inch in the Z2 right now.
Yeah. Great question, Vance, because I'm a fan of QNED. I've been watching all you videos lately because I'm new to the game. I went with a controversial LG QNED. Why isn't there much content on said TV? Well, so the first generation QNED came out in 2021, or QNED, that's the 90. And it was pretty good. It was a little bit expensive, but that was about it. Then last year, they didn't refresh the QNED 90. They instead repackaged it as the QNED 83, which is still great, but now it's cheaper. So I've been recommending that as a premium choice for its
Yes.
price. It's under $1,000 for the 65-inch. They did release the 85, but the 85 had issues with corner bleed, because it was designed as a mid-tier, falling below the QNED 90. This year, Robert, so now we're caught up.
Yes.
Any announcements you can share about QNED for 2023?
Yes. So we will have the full line except for the 90 and 99. That is not going to come to the US. It
Okay.
will be in Europe and Asia as well. So in the United States, the flagship will be the QNED 85, a
Okay.
new one for 2023. And it's a mini LED.
Yes.
So it's not a full array local dim. There's a mini LED with the new processor. So
Interesting.
I am
wait.
optimistic for this TV, to say the least.
And another thing is, I can't wait to see the Sharp, only because it feels like Sony's focused on its They're focused on the A95L. I got that. But now Sharp is interesting. You know what? If Sony's going to put a gap this year, we're going to jump in and do what we do best. So Sharp, I believe, is similar to Panasonic and Sony. They want to be accurate, but also exciting and pushing the limits of technology. So I cannot wait to see what the mini LED from Sharp looks like as well. I predict that its pricing will be somewhere around QN95C or just below that, right? Under 2,000 for the 65-inch. So it'll be right there in the battle against the X95L, as well as the QN90 and 95C. And the question is, well, how good is it going to be? So we'll have some of that comparison at some point when it comes out. And so, High Def, thank you. Great stream, gentlemen. Hey, guys, thank you for showing up. So now before we go, let's see. I'm going to have a video this weekend that is going to be groundbreaking in that, let's just say, because of this announcement, Samsung may have to take QNED off the shelf, their QNED. They were saving it because they were thinking, you know what, we don't need to pull out the real QNED, right? Because QD OLED's so good. I think they might have to now, because with this announcement of this TV that's actually launching, it actually is a step past QD OLED, or is it? So I'm going to have that bit of video this weekend. I think it's awesome that we're seeing this. So, and then we'll talk about it next week as well during our live stream. So, and Robert, you have the last word. Anything interesting you want to share before we head out?
Well, other than the importance of people to please check back with us 1 week from now, because we're going to be releasing a lot more information on all these TVs, but especially more focused on the G3. There is so much more to say. We've been on air over 2 hours and we have not covered everything.
I know.
And this is learn about these, and it's important information.
And a lot of you say, hey, where's the S95C? It's because you got the A95K, you got the G3. They both have Dolby Vision. I wanted to see the differences. We will have the S95C next weekend. There's just so much content, guys. And I got to save some excitement for next weekend.
Gotta save it, babe.
2 days worth of comparisons. The best from QD OLED, Samsung S95C, and the best from LG MLA G3. And they stepped up, by the way. I had my doubts that MLA could do it. They did it. And now let's get serious and see what the content looks like before calibration and after calibration for both of them. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Hey, have a great weekend. And until next time, stop the FOMO.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.